Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back in time, all the way to the gilded, labyrinthine world of the Ottoman Empire, and we're doing it from the most unexpected of places, the Sultan's harem. But this isn't some romanticized fairy tale. We're going to spend the next several hours exploring what it was really like to live there, day in and day out, as one of the thousands of young women who passed through its gates. You're going to feel the heavy silks, smell the sweet jasmine, and maybe even get a little claustrophobic. It's a place of incredible luxury and immense power, but also of quiet desperation and brutal competition. You probably won't survive this journey with your modern sensibilities intact. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from in the comments and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand at the gate, a girl of 14, maybe 15. The air is thick with the scent of spices and a distant, almost overwhelming floral sweetness. You're not a prisoner, not exactly, but you are a commodity. A new arrival at the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. You've been on the road for weeks, first on a ship across the sea, then a slow, rocking carriage ride that seemed to go on forever. Your home, a village tucked away in the Caucasus Mountains, is already a distant, fuzzy memory. You arrived here, not by choice, but because your parents, or maybe a local warlord, sold you. This isn't a tragic story, though, for them, it was a business transaction, and for you, it's a chance, an escape from a life of probable hardship to one of unbelievable potential. After all, the harem isn't a dungeon, it's a social ladder with a golden, diamond-encrusted top. The heavy, arched doorway looms over you. You can hear the distant murmur of voices, a soft tinkling sound like 1,000 tiny bells, and a persistent, rhythmic swishing. It's the sound of a very different world, a black eunuch, a towering figure with a calm, impassive face, leads you through the gate. His clothes are immaculate, a rich, dark wool that seems to absorb the light. The black eunuchs, as you'll soon learn, are the guardians of this world, the eyes and ears of the Sultan. They are also, ironically, prisoners themselves, castrated and brought here to serve. Historians still argue whether the castration was a practice of the Ottoman court or a pre-existing condition, but either way, their presence is a powerful reminder of the physical and emotional separation of this place from the outside world. As you step inside, the world shifts. The hot sun of the city is replaced by cool, shadowed marble. The air smells of Turkish delight and rosewater. You walk down a long corridor, your bare feet padding softly on the stone. The sheer scale of the palace is intimidating. It feels less like a home and more like an entire city. One built for a single man and the hundreds of women who serve him. The journey here was one of the first. Small lessons: forget your name, forget your past, and forget your old life. You are a blank slate, your new life begins right now. You try to remember a quirky little thing you were told on the journey, that the Ottomans had a special term, kariye, for a concubine who had not yet been formally educated or presented to the Sultan. You are, for now, just a kariye, a piece of clay waiting to be moulded. The eunuch doesn't speak, but his presence is a constant. Quiet command. Follow and do not question. You see other girls, a handful of them, who arrived before you. They look just as lost, their eyes wide and a little glassy. You're not alone, but you are certainly on your own. You're not really a person here anymore. You're a potential, and that's all you need to be. The eunuch leads you from the dark, cool corridor into a bright, almost blinding open courtyard. The sky above is a shocking, clear blue, and you squint against the sudden light. This is the court of the concubines, or the Kari courtyard. It is a massive, rectangular space paved with smooth, white marble, polished to a mirror-like sheen. In the center, a large fountain gurgles, its water catching the light and spraying a fine, cool mist that feels heavenly on your skin. Around the perimeter, 2 stories of arched, Ornate balconies with intricate woodwork and vibrant tiles look down on the courtyard. Every archway seems to lead to another hidden passage, another mystery. You crane your neck, taking it all in. The sound that greeted you at the gate, that persistent swishing, now makes sense. There are dozens of other girls here, all moving with a quiet purpose. Some are sweeping the marble with long, bristled brooms. Others are carrying large, heavy-looking clay jars, presumably filled with water. They wear simple, unadorned dresses, a uniform of sorts. Much like the one you were given upon arrival, the colours are muted, a palette of browns and greys, which makes the splashes of vivid colour on the surrounding tiles and walls feel even more spectacular. You feel a pang of inadequacy. You don't know the rules here yet, and you're afraid to move, to speak, to do anything wrong. This is the first of many lessons. In the harem, a mistake is not just an error, it's a potential downfall. You notice a small but peculiar detail. A few of the older concubines have a faint, almost invisible tattoo on their wrist, a tiny dot or a small star. You'll learn later that this was a fringe tidbit, a secret symbol used by some of the more established girls to identify themselves as belonging to a specific faction or patron within the harem, a quiet rebellion against the sameness of their existence. It's a subtle way of saying, I am not just a carrier. It's a very human thing to do, isn't it? To find a way to express individuality, even when all the rules are designed to erase it. The eunuch points to a set of stairs leading to the upper balcony and gestures for you to follow. Your heart thumps nervously against your ribs. Up here, the air is cooler, and the view is even more breathtaking. You can see over the courtyard walls to the distant, shimmering blue of the Bosphorus Strait and the rooftops of Istanbul. It's the first time you've been able to glimpse the outside world since you arrived, and the sight is almost disorienting. It's a harsh reminder that you are now living in a beautiful, gilded cage. The sheer size of the harem, which comprises over 300 rooms, 9 baths, 2 mosques, a hospital, and a laundry, is a mainstream historical fact that you can now viscerally appreciate. It is a world unto itself. You turn your attention back to your immediate surroundings. The hallways here are narrow and more intimate. The eunuch stops in front of a small, simple wooden door and pushes it open. Inside, it's a small room with a low cot, a tiny rug, and a single, shuttered window. This will be your home. It's clean, but Spartan. You are not alone. There are 2 other girls already in the room. They glance up at you, their faces unreadable, and then return to whatever they were doing. No introductions, no pleasantries, just silence. It's an interesting social dynamic. You're living with them, but you are also, in a very real way, their competitor. You can't help but wonder, are they allies, or are they rivals? It's a question you'll spend your entire time here trying to answer. Historians still argue whether the camaraderie among the concubines was more prevalent than the rivalry, or if it varied wildly based on individual personalities and circumstances. You suspect it's a bit of both. You're just a speck of dust in this massive, complex machine. And for now, all you can do is learn to be a speck of dust in the right way. The first few days are a blur of new names, new faces, and new rules. Your education begins immediately. A crash course in what it means to be a part of the Sultan's household. This isn't about reading or writing, not yet, anyway. It's about a complete re-education of your body and mind. You are taught to walk with a specific, silent glide, your feet barely lifting from the polished marble. Every move is meant to be graceful, intentional. You learn to carry a tray of delicate pastries without a wobble, to pour tea with a fluid, noiseless motion. It feels a bit like being a wind-up toy, each action programmed and practiced until it becomes second nature. Your first teacher is an older woman, a kalfa, or mistress, a former concubine herself who never made it to the top ranks but found a place as a supervisor. Her face is a roadmap of disappointment, but her eyes are sharp, missing nothing. She corrects you constantly. A soft tap on the arm if you reach for a cup too quickly. A quick whisper in your ear if your posture sags. Silence is a jewel, she tells you. A saying you'll hear over and over again. This is a mainstream historical fact. The harem was not just a pleasure palace, it was a finishing school. Girls were trained in everything from embroidery to conversation, preparing them for a life of service and, for a lucky few, a life of influence. You also learn a peculiar little tidbit of harem life, the importance of the scarf. You're given a simple, plain scarf to wear around your head, a very different style from the elaborate headwear of the high-ranking ladies, but you are taught to fold it in a specific, intricate way, a sign of respect and humility. There's a subtle, almost invisible language to these things. A loose fold might be seen as sloppiness, while a too tight one could be seen as a sign of rebellion. It's an unspoken grammar, a secret code that tells those who know how to read it exactly where you stand. You're beginning to understand that every single detail here has a purpose, from the way you hold your hands to the way you look at a senior concubine. The lessons aren't just about physical grace. You're also taught the rudiments of conversation, though it's less about expressing your own thoughts and more about learning the art of polite, non-confrontational dialogue. You are taught not to ask questions, but to answer them, not to offer opinions, but to listen and agree. This is a world of subtle power plays, and the less you say, the less likely you are to make a critical misstep. You are also taught to use a specific, respectful form of address for every rank of person you encounter, from the lowest maid to the valide sultan. It's a bit like learning a new language, only this one is made up of bows, nods, and carefully chosen words. You practice these lessons for hours, your muscles aching from holding perfect posture. It's hard to remember a world where you could run, shout, or even just sit however you wanted. This new reality is a constant, quiet demand on your body. You find yourself drifting off at night, your mind still running through the day's lessons, the proper way to stand, the proper way to serve. It's boring, repetitive, and utterly exhausting, a kind of mental and physical work that you've never experienced before. But you also feel a slow, quiet sense of pride when your kalfa gives you a rare, almost imperceptible nod of approval. You're getting better, you're learning, and in this place, learning is the key to survival. Historians still argue whether the education of concubines was designed primarily for the Sultan's pleasure or as a genuinely effective form of social and economic mobility for the women. You suspect it was a bit of both, a cunning system that offered a glimmer of hope while keeping the vast majority in their place. After weeks of learning to walk without making a sound and mastering the art of the perfect paw, you begin to understand the next, more daunting stage of your journey. The term odalisque is whispered among the older girls, a word that carries a weight of both hope and fierce competition. An odalisque is not just a concubine, she is a trained, educated woman of the harem. She has moved beyond the simple, menial chores and is now eligible for a higher position, one that might actually bring her to the attention of the Sultan himself. It's a long path, and the vast majority of girls never make it. For them, the harem will be their entire life, and they will live out their days as servants, seamstresses, or musicians. The promise of becoming an odalisque, however, is the single thread of hope that keeps you going. This journey is broken down into a series of lessons, each one more complex than the last. You start with basic conversational Turkish, your new name a soft, unfamiliar sound on your tongue. Then comes music. You're given a kanon, a type of zither, its strings cool against your fingertips. The notes you produce are clumsy and unmusical at first, but with practice, they begin to form melodies. You also learn to play the ney, a reed flute. Its haunting, breathy sound, a stark contrast to the sharp pluck of the qanun. Historians still argue whether the mastery of these instruments was a genuine form of artistic expression or simply another tool in the concubine's arsenal to entertain the Sultan. You suspect it was both, a skill that could be either a simple performance or a deeply personal connection. You also spend hours on calligraphy. You learn to hold the special reed pen, a kamush, and dip it into the rich black ink. The feel of the ink soaking into the thick, fibrous paper is oddly satisfying. The lines you create at first are jagged and uneven, but slowly, with patient, repeated strokes, they begin to flow. This is a mainstream historical fact. Calligraphy was considered one of the highest art forms in the Ottoman Empire, and a woman who could write with skill and beauty was considered to be of a superior education. It was a skill that not only demonstrated your intelligence but also your patience and discipline. And then there are the lessons you learn from the other girls, the informal education of the harem. A whisper from an older girl about a particular eunuch who is more easily bribed. A hushed warning about a mistress who is known for her cruelty. These are the quirky, fringe tidbits of survival, You learn that a specific type of knot in the sash of your simple dress can signal to another girl that you need to speak to her in private. You find out that a certain flower placed in a window can mean a particular message is being sent to a person on the outside. It's a secret language woven into the fabric of daily life, a way for the women to communicate in a world where every conversation is likely to be overheard. You're a long way from the top, and the competition is fierce. The other girls in your room are also learning, practicing, and competing. You see the glimmers of ambition in their eyes. They are just as lost and hopeful as you are. One of them, a girl named Zeynep, from the same region as you, sometimes glances at you with a look you can't quite place. Is it solidarity, or is it a warning? You can't tell, and you know better than to ask. Your journey from a simple carrier to a potential odalisque is a long and arduous one, but with every new melody you learn, every perfect line you draw, you feel a small, quiet sense of progress. You are no longer just a commodity, you are becoming a person of value, and that feels like the first real victory in this strange and beautiful new world. Life settles into a predictable, relentless routine. Your days are a mosaic of mundane tasks, each one a thread in the vast tapestry of the harem's daily function. You wake before dawn, the first call to prayer a soft, distant melody that seems to seep through the walls. The air is cool and still, but the harem is already humming with activity. Your first chore is often fetching water from the courtyard fountain. The clay jars are surprisingly heavy, and you learn quickly to balance them on your hip, a skill that feels both ancient and utterly practical. The walk to the fountain is a chance to observe, to see who is already up and about, who is whispering in corners, who seems to have fallen out of favor. You've noticed that the girls who move with the most purpose are the ones who have been here the longest, their faces set in a mask of practiced efficiency. Afterward, there's cleaning. The harem is a place of incredible opulence, but it is also a place that requires constant, meticulous upkeep. You sweep the marble floors, your broom a rhythmic swish, swish, swish that joins the chorus of 100 other brooms. You dust the intricate wooden screens, called mashrabias, that filter the light and provide a modicum of privacy. It's a mindless, physical task, but it gives you time to think, to replay the day's lessons, to think about the girls in your room, to remember the feeling of the sun on your face and the wind in your hair from a life that feels like it belongs to a different person. A quirky little tidbit you've picked up is that the harem had its own highly specialized cleaning teams, each with a specific duty. There were those who just scrubbed the floors, others who only polished the brass, and still others who had the exclusive job of wiping down the gilded surfaces of the sultan's private rooms. It was a hierarchy of cleanliness. And then there's the serving. You stand for hours in the kitchens, learning to chop vegetables, grind spices, and arrange platters of fruit with an almost artistic precision. The food here is a feast for the eyes as well as the stomach, and even the simplest meal is prepared with a level of care you've never seen before. This is a mainstream historical fact. The Ottoman palace kitchens, including those of the harem, were a massive operation, employing hundreds of people and serving thousands of meals a day. They were a world of their own, with their own internal politics and pecking order. You learn to stay out of the way, to be seen but not heard, to move with a quiet efficiency that won't draw the attention of the head cooks. Formidable women who rule their domains with an iron fist. Your days are long, repetitive, and utterly unglamorous. There's no hint of the romance you might have imagined before you arrived. It's just work. You are a cog in a very large machine, a nameless part of an immense, beautiful, and utterly practical operation. You hear a joke whispered between two of the older girls, a little bit of gallows humor. The only thing the Sultan sees of us is our backs, and that's only when we're bent over to clean his floors. You laugh softly to yourself. It's a sobering thought, but also a comforting one. For now, your job is simple, to survive and to learn. You are not a concubine yet. Not truly. You are a servant, a student, a potential. You are a long, long way from the scented handkerchief and the Sultan's bedchamber. Historians still argue whether the daily life of a concubine was designed to be as monotonous and physically demanding as it was, or if it was simply a natural consequence of managing such a large population of women. You suspect it was a bit of both, a form of discipline and control masked as a natural rhythm of life. As the days turn into weeks, you begin to understand the complex, invisible map of the harem's social hierarchy. It's not a simple pecking order, it's a fractal system, with smaller hierarchies nested within larger ones. You are at the bottom. A carrier, a term that feels less like a title and more like a simple description of your current state. Unranked, unproven, and easily replaced. You live with the other carriers, sharing a small room with dozens of other girls, your life defined by the most basic of tasks. Just above you are the shagird, or apprentices. These are the girls who have shown promise in their education, the ones who have mastered a musical instrument or shown a talent for calligraphy. They are allowed a little more freedom and a few more comforts. They get to wear slightly better clothes and are given more interesting chores, like preparing the Sultan's personal correspondence or arranging the flowers in the royal chambers. It's a small step up, but it feels like a giant leap. The next rank, and the one you most aspire to, is that of the odalisque. As you recall, these are the educated, trained concubines. They have a room of their own, maybe even a small servant to help with their chores. They are the ones who are beautiful, intelligent, and talented enough to potentially attract the Sultan's attention. A mainstream historical fact is that the Sultan rarely, if ever, saw the vast majority of the women in the harem. The odalisques were the elite, the few who were actually on the roster, so to speak. For a potential night with the Sultan, they are treated with a quiet respect by the lower-ranking girls and a simmering jealousy by their peers. Above the odalisques are the iqbal, the fortunate ones who have had a child with the Sultan. They are also referred to as the favourites, or gözde. If a concubine gives birth to a boy, she is granted the title of Haseki Sultan, and her power becomes immense, second only to the Sultan's mother. You've heard whispers of these women, distant figures of immense power and wealth who live in a part of the harem you've never seen. They are like goddesses, and you are just a mortal. It's a quirky tidbit you've heard, but the Iqbals sometimes had their own personal staff of black eunuchs, a sign of their incredible status and influence, something a carrier could only dream of. And at the very top is the Valide Sultan, the Sultan's mother. She is the most powerful woman in the empire, and her word is law within the harem. The black eunuchs answer to her. The thousands of women under her command obey her, and even the Sultan himself seeks her counsel. She is the mother of the empire, the matriarch who controls everything from the daily menus to the marriage alliances of her sons and daughters. You've only seen her once, a fleeting glimpse of a woman shrouded in rich silks and jewels, her face a mask of serene authority. Historians still argue whether the Valide Sultan's power was a formal part of the Ottoman administrative structure or simply a result of her immense personal influence over her son. But for the women in the harem, the distinction doesn't matter. Her power is real, and it is absolute. You understand now that the harem is not just a place of pleasure, it's a political ecosystem, and every single person, from the lowliest servant to the Valide Sultan herself, has a role to play. The hammam, or bathhouse, is not just a place for cleansing, it is a vital social hub, the harem's version of the town square. On your designated day, you gather with the other girls and make your way to the bathhouse. It is a large, domed room, filled with a thick, steamy air that feels like a warm, wet blanket. The sound of water running, of soft splashes and quiet chatter, echoes off the marble walls. You are given a rough, coarse cloth called a kize and a block of olive oil soap that smells clean and earthy. The air is heavy with the scent of jasmine and rosewater, which some of the wealthier concubines use in their private bathing rituals. You strip down to a simple cloth wrap, and as you do, you can't help but feel a strange sense of vulnerability. Everyone here is the same, a collection of bodies, some thin and sharp, others soft and round. You feel a pang of insecurity, but you quickly push it away. This is not a place for self-consciousness. This is a place for observation. A mainstream historical fact is that the hammam was considered a place of both purification and social networking. For the women of the harem, it was one of the few places they could be relatively unguarded, where the strict social rules could be bent just a little. As you wash, you listen. This is where the gossip flows, where the news of the outside world, filtered through the eunuchs and the palace staff, is exchanged. You hear whispers about a new shipment of spices arriving at the port, a minor squabble between two high-ranking officials, and the most delicious, tantalizing tidbits of all, the private life of the Sultan. You hear about which concubine he visited last, what gift he gave her, and what her new position might be. It's like a living newspaper, a quiet hum of information that tells you more about the harem's inner workings than any formal lesson could. You also notice a quirky tidbit. Many of the girls have intricate designs drawn on their skin with henna, a temporary adornment that will last for days. These aren't just decorative, they're symbolic. A certain floral pattern might signify a wish for a child, while a geometric design might be a quiet prayer for a promotion. It's a way for the women to express their deepest desires in a way that is visible but not easily understood by outsiders. You feel a strange kind of kinship with these girls, even the ones you don't know, a sense that you are all in this together, all hoping for something more. The hammam is also a place for quiet rivalries. You notice the subtle glances, the way one concubine might accidentally splash water on another, or the way a group of girls will turn their backs on someone they have deemed an enemy. It is a silent war, a series of microaggressions that can be just as damaging as any open confrontation. It's a reminder that even in a place of apparent unity, the competition for the Sultan's favor is always lurking just beneath the surface. You'll hear a joke later that the hammam is the only place in the harem where a fight can be started and finished before anyone even says a word. As you dry off, you feel a sense of renewal, of being cleansed and prepared for the next part of your journey. The air outside the hammam feels cool against your skin. You are a new person in a way, ready to face the world. Historians still argue whether the hammam was a place of true social freedom or simply another controlled environment where the women were under constant surveillance. You suspect it was a little of both, a paradox of private life and public display, of communal washing and individual scheming. After your trip to the hammam, you are given a new garment. It is a simple dress of undyed cotton, but it is impeccably clean and perfectly fitted. It's an unspoken rule here that even the most basic clothes must be worn with a certain quiet dignity. As you put it on, you realize that this is your new uniform, a physical representation of your place in the harem. A mainstream historical fact is that the clothes worn by the concubines were very specific, serving as a subtle but clear way to distinguish rank. The lower-ranking girls like yourself wore simple fabrics and plain colors, while the favorites and the higher-ranking women wore more elaborate dresses of silk, velvet, and brocade, often with intricate embroidery. You look in a small, polished metal mirror and see a different person looking back. Your hair, once a wild mess, is now pulled back in a simple braid. The clothes you wore before, the ones that connected you to your old life, are gone, replaced by this unadorned uniform. You feel a strange sense of both loss and liberation. You've shed your old identity and are now a blank canvas, ready to be painted with the colors of the harem. It's a bit like a chrysalis, isn't it? The outside is plain, but the inside is where all the real transformation is happening. A quirky little tidbit you've noticed is that some of the girls, when no one is looking, will sew a tiny, almost invisible, personal emblem into the hem of their dresses, a small embroidered flower, a simple knot of thread, a secret symbol that only they know is there. It's a small act of defiance, a way of saying, I am still me, even if you've taken away my name and my past. It's a very human thing to do, to find a way to leave a small, quiet mark on a world that is so intent on erasing you, a small protest against the machine. The clothing, in this place, is not just about what you wear, it's a language. The color of a girl's sash, the way her headscarf is tied, the presence or absence of a piece of jewelry. All of these things tell a story. You've heard a joke that the only thing more complex than the Sultan's court is a concubine's wardrobe, and you can see why. Every detail is a clue, a symbol, a message. It's a secret conversation happening in plain sight. You are not yet a part of that conversation. Your job, for now, is simply to wear your uniform with grace and to move with purpose. The clothing serves as a constant, physical reminder of your role, a daily lesson in humility and patience. It's a humbling thought, but also a comforting one. There is no pretense here. You are what you are. And for now, that is enough. Historians still argue whether the strict dress code was designed primarily for social control or if it was simply a matter of practicality in managing a large population. You suspect it was a bit of both, a cunning way to keep order while subtly reinforcing the rigid social ladder. You look at yourself in the mirror one last time. You see a girl who is tired but determined, a girl who has learned to be quiet and still, a girl who is ready for whatever comes next. The dress is a promise and a cage, a sign of your potential and a symbol of your confinement. For now, you will wear it, and you will wait. Meals in the harem are a communal affair, a complex ballet of order, taste, and social observation. You eat in large, common dining halls, sitting cross-legged on plush carpets at low, round tables. The food is brought in by a procession of younger girls, and the air fills with the rich, intoxicating aromas of seasoned lamb, slow-cooked vegetables, and saffron rice. A mainstream historical fact is that the Ottoman palace cuisine was renowned throughout the empire, a fusion of influences from Central Asia, the Balkans, and the Middle East. The food you are eating, even the simplest dishes, is of an incredible quality, far beyond anything you've ever known. You are taught to eat with your right hand, a sign of cleanliness and respect. You learn to take a small portion of bread and use it to scoop up a mouthful of stew, to eat slowly and deliberately, never reaching for a dish before your superiors have taken their fill. The silence at the tables is broken only by the quiet hum of chewing and the soft clinking of pottery. This is a very different kind of meal than you are used to. There is no loud conversation, no boisterous laughter, just a quiet, focused consumption. It's a bit like a meditation session, isn't it? Except with really good food. A quirky little tidbit you've picked up is that the placement of a certain type of fruit on a platter could signal a message. A specific arrangement of dates might mean that a high-ranking woman is in a bad mood, while a cluster of pomegranates could be a sign of good news. It's a secret language spoken in sugar and spice, a way for the concubines and their staff to communicate without ever saying a word. It's a bit like the quiet, conspiratorial glances you've seen, only a lot more delicious. You find yourself paying close attention to the way the food is arranged on the platters, trying to decipher the unspoken messages. The meal is also a time for subtle social maneuvering. You watch as a girl carefully places a piece of meat on the plate of a higher-ranking concubine, a gesture of respect and deference. You see another girl, one who is known for her fiery temper, being pointedly ignored by the others. It's a reminder that even in a place of apparent peace, the social tensions are always simmering just below the surface. A joke you heard from an older concubine is that the harem's biggest weapon isn't a sword, it's a cold shoulder at mealtime. You're learning that being ostracized at dinner is a far worse punishment than any physical reprimand. As the meal winds down, you're taught the proper way to rinse your mouth and hands with a special basin and pitcher. The water is scented with rose water and lemon, and the act feels less like a simple cleaning and more like a ceremony. You leave the dining hall feeling full and content, but also a little bit exhausted. It's a strange thing to be so hyper-aware of your surroundings, to constantly be on guard. Historians still argue whether the formal dining etiquette was a genuine part of Ottoman culture, or if it was a specifically designed form of discipline for the women in the harem. You suspect it was a mix of both, a way to maintain order while also preparing the women for the highly structured social world of the palace. The silence, the subtle movements, the unsaid rules, they are all a part of your daily education. You've heard whispers about them, seen them from a distance, but today you finally have your first direct encounter with the black eunuchs. You are tasked with delivering a stack of embroidered linens to a new section of the harem, and you are escorted by one of them. He is a tall, imposing figure, his skin a deep, rich black, his face impassive. He walks with a quiet authority, his broad shoulders and commanding presence seeming to part the very air around him. You feel a jolt of both fear and respect. These men are the harem's guardians, its silent sentinels. A mainstream historical fact is that the black eunuchs, or Kızlar Asa, were often captured and castrated in Africa before being brought to the Ottoman Empire. They were considered more trustworthy than their white counterparts because they were completely cut off from their families and had no external loyalties. Your eunuch guide doesn't speak, not a single word. He simply gestures with a sweep of his hand, and you follow. He leads you down a series of long, shadowed corridors, their walls lined with intricately tiled patterns. The air grows cooler and quieter here. It feels like you're stepping into a different part of the palace, one that is not meant for the general public. This is the inner sanctum, the home of the most powerful women and the most important servants. You learn a quirky little tidbit from an older girl later on. The black eunuchs have their own complex social hierarchy, with a chief eunuch at the top who is so powerful that he can even have the ear of the sultan. He is a king in his own right, the master of a kingdom of women. You watch the eunuch's movements. They are precise, deliberate. He is not a servant in the way you are a servant. He is a manager, a protector, a jailer. He is a part of the harem, but also apart from it. He is a figure of both immense power and profound isolation. You'll hear a joke later that the eunuchs have the easiest job in the harem. They get to see everything without having to deal with any of the drama. You think to yourself that a joke like that can only be told by someone who has never met a eunuch. Their faces are a roadmap of quiet suffering and profound secrets. As you walk, you realize something. You've been here for weeks now, and you've never seen a man who wasn't a eunuch. The harem is a world of women, a society run by women and for the benefit of a single man, but administered by these quiet, imposing figures. They are the bridge between the two worlds. The only men allowed to pass freely between the sultan's quarters and the women's domain. Historians still argue whether the castration of these men was a humane practice intended to protect the women of the harem or a brutal method of ensuring loyalty and control. You suspect it was both, a system that was born out of a desire for security but also became a symbol of the sultan's absolute power. When you finally arrive at your destination, the eunuch simply points to the door and then turns and walks away, his silence more commanding than any words. You are left alone with the linens and the door, a small human in a very large, very strange world. The encounter leaves you shaken, but also more aware of the invisible boundaries of your new home. The eunuchs are not to be trifled with. They are the eyes and ears of the sultan, and they are everywhere, in the harem. Sickness isn't just a physical ailment, it's a social event, a moment of both vulnerability and, strangely, opportunity. One day, you wake with a terrible fever, your body a furnace, your head a throbbing drum. A senior concubine, a kalfa, comes to your small room. She doesn't seem concerned in the way a mother might be, but more like a farmer inspecting a sick animal. You are a valuable commodity, and a sick one is a problem. She gives you a small, bitter-tasting pellet to swallow, made from a concoction of herbs and spices. It tastes a bit like dirt and disappointment, but it seems to help. You learn quickly about the harem's unique approach to medicine. There are no doctors in the traditional sense. Not for the women, anyway. Instead, there are women who have a deep, generational knowledge of herbalism and folk remedies. They use a wide array of plants, from the common chamomile to the exotic and hard-to-find saffron. A mainstream historical fact is that while the Sultan had access to the best physicians in the empire, the women of the harem were often treated by these informal medical practitioners, women who had a deep understanding of local and regional cures. It was a world of practical, unscientific knowledge passed down from mother to daughter. You also encounter a quirky little tidbit of harem medicine. One of the more eccentric remedies for a persistent cough is a drink made from boiled barley and a tiny bit of honey that has been smoked over cedarwood. The smell is strange and woody, but it is said to have a calming effect. You feel a strange sense of comfort in these traditions. A connection to a long line of women who have faced the same struggles and found their own ways to cope. It's a bit like a warm hug from a stranger. A sense of shared humanity in a place that is designed to be impersonal. You'll hear a joke later that the harem's best doctor isn't a person, but the sun. And you can see why. The warmth of the courtyards and the fresh air seem to do more good than any of the bitter concoctions you're given. As you recover, you are given a special, very light broth to eat, and you are told to rest. The other girls in your room leave you alone, a polite and unspoken social rule that a sick person should be given space. This is a subtle lesson in the harem's paradoxes. While it can be a place of fierce competition, it can also be a place of unexpected community. The women here may be rivals, but they are also all in the same boat, and they understand that today's rival could be tomorrow's ally. Historians still argue whether the reliance on folk remedies was a result of a lack of medical access, or if it was a deeply ingrained part of Ottoman culture that valued traditional healing practices. You suspect it was both, a system that was both a necessity and a choice. You feel a quiet gratitude for the women who have nursed you back to health, a new sense of belonging in this strange and overwhelming place. You are no longer just a new arrival, you are a person who has been sick and has recovered. A small but significant milestone in your harem journey. Your education begins to shift from the purely practical to the artistic. After your recovery from the fever, you are deemed ready for the next level of training. The days are no longer just filled with sweeping floors and fetching water. They are now punctuated by the soft, plucking sounds of string instruments and the rustle of paper. A mainstream historical fact is that a well-rounded education in the harem was not just about domestic skills, but also included music, poetry, and art. These were seen as essential accomplishments for a woman who might one day be a companion to the Sultan. You are introduced to a new teacher, an older woman with kind eyes and a crooked smile who oversees your lessons. She hands you a tanbur, a long-necked stringed instrument, and teaches you to hold it properly. The sound it produces is a little mournful, a little otherworldly, and it feels as though the instrument itself has a soul. You spend hours practicing, your fingers growing sore and calloused from pressing down on the strings. It's a tedious process, but when you finally manage to play a simple, clear melody, you feel a jolt of pride that is deeper and more profound than any you've felt since you arrived. You'll hear a joke later that the only thing worse than a new carrier playing the tanbur is a new carrier singing while playing the tanbur. You also spend time on calligraphy, a skill you learned the basics of as a novice. Now, you are taught the intricate, flowing script of the Ottoman court. You practice writing poems, not just your own, but those of famous poets like Rumi and Hafiz. The act is meditative, a dance of ink and paper. You learn a quirky little tidbit from your teacher. The most skilled calligraphers would often write on tiny pieces of silk, a form of secret communication. A small, perfect line of poetry could be a hidden message of love or a coded warning, a whisper that could be passed from hand to hand without a sound. The harem is full of these small, quiet rebellions. You are taught to be a vessel for the Sultan's pleasure, to entertain and to serve, but in the process, you are also becoming an artist, a musician, a person with a mind and a soul that cannot be completely contained. Historians still argue whether this artistic education was a form of empowerment for the women or simply another way to make them more valuable commodities. You suspect it was both. A woman who can play a beautiful melody is more likely to be chosen by the Sultan, but a woman who can express her own feelings through her art is also, in a very real way, free. As the days pass and you find yourself getting lost in the music and the art, the mundane chores of your earlier life are still there, but they are now a backdrop to a world of beauty and creativity. The music and the poetry are a way for you to connect with yourself, to remember who you were before you became a carrier. And in a strange way, this art is also a form of silent protest, a quiet defiance of the rules that seek to define you. It is a way of saying, I am more than you think I am. The whispers among the older concubines are your most valuable and most dangerous lessons. You are now at a level where you are considered a true odalisque, a candidate for the Sultan's attention. Your teachers have taught you the arts. But the girls who have been here longer teach you the science, the quiet, cunning art of seduction. This isn't about grand gestures or dramatic beauty, it's about subtlety, about leaving a trail of breadcrumbs for the Sultan to follow. A mainstream historical fact is that a concubine's appeal was not just based on her physical appearance, but on a combination of her wit, intelligence, and grace. The Sultan was a man with thousands of women at his disposal. A simple, pretty face was not enough. You had to be a puzzle to be solved. You listen as an older girl, one who has already been to the Sultan's private chambers, gives you a rundown. She explains the significance of a specific fragrance, not the heavy, cloying perfumes of the outside world, but a subtle, musky scent derived from a specific blend of ambergris and jasmine. She tells you to dab it on your wrists, on the hollow of your throat, and behind your ears, in the places where the scent will be released slowly, a quiet, inviting whisper rather than a shout. This is your first lesson in the art of the innuendo. A quirky little tidbit you learn is that certain flowers, when worn in your hair, could also be a quiet signal. A single white rose might signify purity, a red one a bold desire, and a cluster of honeysuckle a quiet invitation. The entire harem is a language of flowers and fragrance, a silent, fragrant flirtation. You learn that a woman's voice can be a weapon, not a loud voice, but a soft, lilting one that carries a hidden note of intelligence and humor. She tells you to practice telling a story, a simple folk tale or a clever riddle, with a perfect, mesmerizing cadence. The goal is to make the Sultan want to hear you speak, to draw him in with the promise of a sharp mind and a playful wit. It's a bit like being a magician, isn't it? You're not just a person, you're a performance, a carefully curated show of grace and intelligence. You'll hear a joke later that the harem's most important library isn't filled with books, but with whispers. The most important lesson, however, is about the eyes. The Sultan's eyes are everywhere. Even when you can't see them, you're taught to hold his gaze for just a second longer than is strictly proper. A subtle flash of challenge and intrigue. You learn to smile with your eyes, a quiet, knowing glint that hints at a secret. Historians still argue whether these seduction techniques were genuine lessons taught by the women or a result of the concubines simply learning to survive in a highly competitive environment. You suspect it was a bit of both, a practical education that was honed over generations and passed down from woman to woman. You feel a strange mix of excitement and unease. This isn't just about a night in a beautiful room, it's about a chance at a new life, a life of power and influence. And you are now one step closer to making that life a reality. You have heard countless whispers about the Sultan's private apartments, and they have become a mythical, almost unbelievable place in your mind. The rooms are not just living spaces, they are a direct reflection of the immense power and wealth of the Ottoman Empire. You've heard that the Imperial Hall, the grand reception area, is so large that it could hold a small army. Its dome is said to be covered in gold leaf and illuminated by hundreds of oil lamps, casting a warm, golden glow on the intricate tiles and mosaics. It is a mainstream historical fact that these rooms were designed to inspire awe, to make anyone who entered them feel small and insignificant in the face of the Sultan's power. They were a physical manifestation of his divinity, a space where the divine and the human met. You learn from the gossip of older concubines that the Sultan has a specific routine, a daily rhythm that is as predictable as the rising and setting of the sun. He is said to wake before dawn, perform his morning prayers, and then retreat to his personal study to read and write. A quirky little tidbit you hear is that the Sultan had a personal library filled with rare and ancient texts, and that he would often spend hours in there, meticulously copying verses from the Quran or writing his own poetry. This detail, though small, makes him feel a little more human, a little less like the untouchable deity you have been taught to revere. It's a bit like learning that a superhero has a favorite brand of cereal, isn't it? It grounds them in a way you didn't expect. You also hear about the Sultan's private menagerie, a small collection of exotic animals he keeps for his amusement. You're told about a cheetah he has, a beautiful, wild animal that paces in a gilded cage. You hear about rare birds from the Amazon with feathers in every color of the rainbow. These animals are a symbol of his power and his reach, a way of showing that the entire world is his to command. You'll hear a joke later that the Sultan's pets get more attention than most of the concubines, and you can't help but think there's a kernel of truth in that. The Sultan's private world is an enigma, a place that is at once very close and impossibly far away. You are a part of his world, but you are not yet in it. You are on the periphery, a small planet orbiting a massive, brilliant sun. The private apartments are the heart of that sun, a place of immense power and profound loneliness. Historians still argue whether the Sultan's seclusion was a matter of tradition and security, or if it was a self-imposed prison, a way to maintain an aura of mystery and power while being isolated from the very people he ruled. You suspect it was a bit of both. You live and breathe in his shadow, and every day you feel the pull of that brilliant, unreachable light. You are ready. One morning, something truly unexpected happens. You are chosen, along with a small group of other odalisques, for a rare outing, a walk in the palace gardens. The eunuchs escort you, their presence a silent reminder that even this small freedom is tightly controlled. As you step out of the shadowed halls and into the open air, the world explodes in a riot of color and scent. The palace gardens are an oasis of impossible beauty, a serene escape from the stone and marble of the harem. This is a mainstream historical fact. The Ottoman sultans were passionate about their gardens, and the Topkapı Palace grounds were meticulously designed to be a paradise on earth. A blend of formal landscaping and wild, untamed nature. You walk down a path paved with white pebbles, your feet crunching softly with every step. All around you are flowers in every conceivable shade, deep crimson roses, pale pink peonies, and bright yellow tulips. The air is thick with the scent of jasmine and honeysuckle, and a soft, humming sound from 1,000 bees working their way through the blossoms. In the distance, you can hear the gentle rush of a fountain and the cooing of doves. You feel your shoulders relax, the constant tension you carry finally beginning to melt away. This is a quiet, profound luxury. A quirky little tidbit you notice is a small, carefully cultivated patch of night-blooming jasmine, a flower that only releases its full fragrance after the sun has set. You're told by an older girl that the Sultan loves this flower, and that the eunuchs will sometimes cut a few sprigs and place them in the Valide Sultan's private apartments at night. A small, fragrant offering. It's a reminder that even the most powerful people are moved by simple beauty. A bit of unexpected poetry in a place of rigid protocol. You and the other girls are quiet, taking in the sights and sounds. This is not a time for gossip or small talk. It is a time for quiet appreciation. You see a peacock strutting across a perfectly manicured lawn, its iridescent tail fanning out in a shimmering arc. The sight is so beautiful it makes you feel a little light-headed. You'll hear a joke later that the peacock is the only thing in the harem with a bigger ego than the Valide Sultan. And you can't help but smile at the thought. As you walk, you realize something. You are still a prisoner here, but you are a prisoner in a paradise. You have a chance to experience a level of beauty and serenity that most people on the outside will never know. It's a confusing thought, a paradox that you don't quite know how to resolve. The confinement is real, but so is the beauty. Historians still argue whether the Sultan's magnificent gardens were designed as a genuine retreat for his women or as a very deliberate part of the golden cage, a way to provide luxury while still maintaining complete control. You suspect it was a little of both. As you turn to head back to the harem, you take a deep breath, trying to hold on to the scent of the flowers and the feeling of the sun on your face, a memory to carry you through the long, monotonous days that lie ahead. The rhythm of life in the harem is a slow, methodical current, but occasionally a ripple disturbs the surface. Today, a new group of concubines arrives, and you watch from a high balcony, a silent observer of a scene you know intimately. They are young, maybe a little younger than you were, and they carry themselves with the same mix of fear and naive hope. You see the eunuchs leading them through the harem gates, their faces a blank canvas, just like yours was. It's a surreal experience, watching your own past unfold before your eyes. A mainstream historical fact is that the constant arrival of new concubines was a regular feature of harem life, a steady stream of new talent and new faces designed to ensure a constant supply of beautiful and accomplished women for the Sultan's pleasure. It was a conveyor belt of potential. You watch as the new girls are shown their rooms, as they are given their first, simple uniforms, and as they are put to work on the most basic of tasks. You feel a strange sense of detachment, a kind of quiet sadness. They don't know yet what you know. They don't know about the secret language of the flowers, or the power of a single, well-placed word, or the quiet desperation that can set in after weeks of endless, repetitive chores. You want to tell them, to warn them, but you know that's not your place. Your silence is a part of the contract. You also notice a quirky little tidbit that only someone who has been here for a while would pick up on. One of the new girls, a tall, striking girl with a defiant glint in her eyes, has a small, beautiful lute slung over her back. You've been told that instruments were usually taken from the girls upon arrival to be properly stored, but this girl still has hers. It's a quiet signal of her status and her talent, a sign that she is not just a simple carrier, but a woman who has a special, valuable skill. It's a bold move, a quiet rebellion, and you find yourself wondering if she will be a rival or an ally. You'll hear a joke later that the harem's biggest export isn't talent, it's secrets. And you think to yourself that this girl's lute might be the most valuable secret of all. As you turn to leave the balcony, you feel a new sense of purpose. You are no longer one of the new arrivals. You are an insider, a person who has already navigated the first, most dangerous part of the journey. You have a quiet advantage, a knowledge that is a form of power in a place where information is a precious commodity. You have survived the initial shock, the long, lonely days of endless chores, and the quiet despair of being just another face in a sea of faces. You're no longer just a potential, you are a survivor. Historians still argue whether the constant influx of new concubines was a way to keep the older women on their toes, or a simple matter of maintaining a high level of talent in the harem. You suspect it was both, a system that was both practical and psychologically shrewd. It was a way to remind every woman in the harem, from the lowest maid to the most favored concubine, that she was always replaceable. You are no longer a new arrival, but you are not yet a powerful figure. You are somewhere in the middle, and this is where the real game begins. The harem's social ecosystem is a delicate web of alliances and rivalries, and you must learn to navigate it with a quiet, careful tread. A mainstream historical fact is that these rivalries were not just petty squabbles, they were often political in nature, with concubines and high-ranking women forming factions to advance their own interests or those of their children. The harem was the heart of the empire's power, and the women within it were its arteries. You see it everywhere. The silent glances between two girls who have a shared secret. The sudden, cold shoulder from a group of girls who have decided that you are a threat. You find yourself drawn into a quiet alliance with Zeynep, the girl from your region who arrived with you. You share a language, a history, and a quiet understanding that you are on your own here. You sit with her during meals, whisper to her in the hammam, and help her with her chores. Your alliance is not spoken, it is a quiet agreement born of mutual need. It's a bit like a secret club, isn't it? Except the membership is mandatory. A quirky little tidbit you notice is a secret signal used by some of the most established concubines. They wear a specific type of knot in the sash of their dress. A small, intricate twist that only a few people know the meaning of. A single loop might mean an alliance is strong, while a double knot could signify a warning or a betrayal. It's a secret handshake. A subtle way of communicating loyalty and disloyalty without a single word being spoken. You learn that a specific arrangement of flowers in a vase in a common room can also signal a warning. For instance, a rose placed upside down in a bouquet of tulips is a secret sign that someone is not to be trusted. You also see the betrayals. A girl you thought was a friend suddenly turns her back on you, joining a more powerful faction. The harem is a place where friendships are a luxury and alliances are a necessity. You must constantly weigh the benefits of a friendship against the potential cost of being associated with a person who has fallen out of favor. You'll hear a joke later that the harem's most dangerous weapon isn't a dagger, but a whispered rumor. And you know there is a lot of truth in that. A single word, a single look, can destroy a reputation and end a life here. Historians still argue whether the rivalries in the harem were a result of the extreme competition for the sultan's favor, or if they were a natural consequence of a large group of women living in close quarters. You suspect it was a bit of both, a system that was designed to pit women against each other while simultaneously forcing them to rely on each other. It's a delicate, dangerous balance, and you are learning, slowly and carefully, how to walk the tightrope. You are now well versed in the invisible rules of the harem, but there is one figure whose power you can't quite comprehend. You've seen her only a handful of times. A fleeting glimpse of a woman shrouded in rich silks. Her face a serene mask of authority. This is the Valide Sultan, the Sultan's mother, and the single most powerful woman in the empire. A mainstream historical fact is that the Valide Sultan was not just a figurehead, she was a major political player. She had her own treasury, her own staff, and she was the de facto ruler of the harem, managing its thousands of inhabitants and its immense wealth. She was a queen without a crown, and her influence extended far beyond the walls of the palace. You hear stories about her from the older concubines. They speak of her with a mixture of fear and reverence. They talk about her immense fortune, which she uses to build mosques, hospitals, and schools. They talk about her political savvy, her ability to make and break alliances, to influence the Sultan's decisions with a single, quiet word. She is the mother of the empire, a quiet force of nature that shapes the world around her. She is also, in a very real way, your God, your life, your future. and your every move are subject to her will. A quirky little tidbit you learn is that the Valide Sultan had her own private quarters, a luxurious suite of rooms so far removed from the rest of the harem that she was almost a ghost, a presence that was felt but rarely seen. You'll hear a joke later that the Valide Sultan's best weapon isn't a sword, but a disapproving look. And you can see why. Her power is not just in her authority, but in the psychological hold she has over everyone in the harem. A simple glance, a quiet nod, can send a concubine's hopes soaring or dash them to pieces. She is a silent, unblinking eye, and her will is absolute. Her relationship with the Sultan is also a source of endless speculation. You hear whispers that she is his closest confidant, the only person he truly trusts. You hear that she is also his most feared adversary, a woman with her own agenda and her own ambitions for her son and her dynasty. Historians still argue whether the Valide Sultan's immense power was a unique feature of the Ottoman Empire or a common practice in many royal courts. You suspect it was a little of both. Her role was a reflection of the deep respect for matriarchal power in Ottoman society, but it was also a political necessity, a way to ensure the continuity of the dynasty. As you go about your daily chores, you feel her presence everywhere, in the quiet hallways, in the ornate courtyards, in the very air you breathe. The Valide Sultan is the heart and soul of the harem, and you are just a small, insignificant cell in her body. Your goal now is not just to please the Sultan, but to somehow, in some small way, to catch the attention of his mother, to show her that you are worthy of her notice. You know that if you can win her favor, your future will be assured, but you also know that she is an unforgiving goddess, and a single misstep could be the end of you. In the harem, daily life is a blend of the mundane and the spiritual. As you continue your journey, you become aware of the deep-rooted religious practices that punctuate the days and nights. You hear the call to prayer, the adhan, 5 times a day, a soft, echoing melody that drifts through the palace walls. The first call, before dawn, is a quiet signal that the day has begun. The last one, after sunset, is a gentle invitation to rest and reflect. A mainstream historical fact is that the Ottoman court was a deeply religious institution, and the harem, as its heart, was no exception. Islamic rituals and prayers were a central part of daily life for all its inhabitants. You are taught the proper way to perform the salat, the 5 daily prayers. You learn to wash your hands and feet in a specific order before kneeling on a small, soft rug in the direction of Mecca. The prayers are a time of quiet reflection, a moment of peace in a world of constant motion and unspoken tension. You see women of all ranks, from the lowest maid to the most favored concubine, kneeling side by side, their heads bowed in submission. In these moments, the strict social hierarchy seems to disappear, and you are all just people, all seeking a connection to something greater. A quirky little tidbit you notice is that some of the women, particularly the older ones, have small, smooth prayer beads, called tesbih, that they carry with them everywhere. They are made of polished wood, amber, or ivory, and they run the beads through their fingers with a quiet, rhythmic click, click, click. It's a meditative practice, a way of finding a quiet calm in the midst of a chaotic world. You find yourself watching them, feeling a sense of peace just by observing their quiet devotion. You'll hear a joke later that the best way to get a secret out of a girl is to catch her when she's counting her prayer beads. You also learn about the religious festivals, particularly Eid, a time of feasting and celebration. You hear whispers of the special foods that are prepared, the new clothes that are given, and the music and dancing that will fill the courtyards. It's a moment of collective joy, a chance to forget the rivalries and the anxieties of daily life and to simply be happy. You're told that the Sultan himself will sometimes join the festivities, a rare and precious glimpse of the man you are all here to serve. Historians still argue whether the religious practices in the harem were a genuine expression of faith or a form of social control, a way to keep the women humble and subservient. You suspect it was a little of both. Faith can be a powerful source of comfort and strength, but it can also be used as a tool of oppression. You find yourself drawn to the quiet moments of prayer and reflection, a chance to connect with a part of yourself that feels untouched by the harem's power and its politics. You are not just a concubine, you are a person with a soul, and in the harem, that is a precious, and sometimes forgotten, thing to be. It happens in a flash, a moment so brief you wonder if you imagined it. You are carrying a stack of fresh towels through a shadowed corridor, your mind on your next task, when you hear the quiet, rhythmic footsteps of the eunuchs. They are walking with a purpose, a sense of urgency you've never felt before. You flatten yourself against the wall, your body a statue, your heart a frantic drum. You know the rules. When the Sultan is on the move, you do not move, you do not speak, you do not breathe. And then, he is there, a man in rich, dark silks, his face a quiet mystery, his eyes the color of old coffee. He is not as tall as you imagined, not as grand, but his presence is immense, a quiet, magnetic force. He walks with a casual grace, his hands clasped behind his back, his head tilted slightly to the side as if in thought. A mainstream historical fact is that the Sultan was a very private person, rarely seen outside of his ceremonial duties, for the vast majority of the women in the harem. A glimpse of him was a rare and precious event, a moment that would be whispered about for weeks. As he passes, his gaze sweeps over you. A quick, assessing glance that feels as though it has seen to the very bottom of your soul. He doesn't stop, he doesn't say a word, he just continues on his way, a ghost in his own palace. But in that one fleeting moment, you feel something shift inside you, a quiet recognition, a sense of being seen. You feel a strange sense of both awe and fear. This is the man you are here for. This is the man who holds your future in his hands. A quirky little tidbit you notice as he passes is a single, small silver ring on his pinky finger. A simple, unadorned band that seems oddly out of place with his otherwise opulent attire. You learn later that it is a ring that belonged to his father, a small, quiet symbol of his connection to his lineage and his history. It's a very human detail, a small crack in the godlike image of the Sultan that you have been taught to revere. It reminds you that he is, after all, a man, a son, a person with a past. A joke you'll hear later is that the Sultan's greatest gift to his concubines is his privacy. And in that moment, you understand what it means. His privacy is his power, and his presence is a rare, precious gift. You stay against the wall for a long time after he is gone, your body still trembling. The air in the corridor feels different now, charged with a quiet energy. You feel a new sense of purpose, a new sense of urgency. You are no longer just a servant in a beautiful palace. You are a potential companion to a man who, in that one brief glance, made you feel like you were the only person in the world. Historians still argue whether the Sultan's infrequent appearances were a deliberate part of his mystique or a reflection of his introverted personality. You suspect it was both, a system that was designed to make him seem more powerful while also protecting his solitude. The summons comes in the form of a quiet message delivered by a Kalfa, a senior mistress of the harem. The words are simple, but they are a thunderclap in the quiet world you inhabit. The Sultan desires your presence. You are now a Gozda, a favored one. Your heart leaps into your throat, a mix of sheer terror and wild exhilaration. You've prepared for this day for months. But now that it's here, it feels impossible. This is a mainstream historical fact. A sultan would often choose a concubine by having her name sent to her quarters, a simple but powerful signal that her life was about to change forever. The preparations are a ritual in themselves. You are taken to a special room where a team of older women begins to ready you. Your body is bathed in warm, scented water, your skin scrubbed with fine loofahs and then massaged with rose oil. You are not just being cleaned, you are being purified, prepared for a new life. Your hair, once a simple braid, is now meticulously combed, oiled, and styled in a series of intricate twists and curls. The scent of jasmine and sandalwood fills the air. A quirky little tidbit you notice is that one of the women uses a tiny, silver tweezers to pluck a single, perfectly straight hair from your eyebrow, a superstition that is said to bring good luck and a long, fruitful life with the Sultan. It's a small, precise detail in a world of grand gestures, and you find it strangely comforting. You are given a dress to wear, not the simple cotton of your daily uniform, but a gown of shimmering silk, the color of a summer sunset. It is a dress that feels alive on your skin, a weightless cascade of fabric that moves with you, not against you. The dress is embroidered with silver threads that catch the light, and it is a stark, beautiful contrast to the plain clothes of the other concubines. You are also given a pair of simple leather slippers to wear, a quiet, almost invisible detail that is meant to show your humility even in a moment of great triumph. Your teachers, the ones who taught you to walk with a graceful glide and to play a perfect melody on the tambour, now give you one final, unspoken lesson: to be yourself. They tell you to be quiet, to be patient, to be a listener, but they also tell you to be ready. The Sultan, they say, is a man who is bored with grand gestures. He is a man who is looking for a quiet moment of connection in a world of constant performance. This is not about a physical act, it is about a quiet dance of intellect and wit. As you are led to the door, you hear a joke whispered between two of the older women, a bit of gallows humor that makes you laugh nervously. Don't worry, even if you fail, you'll at least get to wear a pretty dress. You take a deep breath, trying to calm the frantic beating of your heart. Historians still argue whether the elaborate preparation was designed to be a grand show for the Sultan or a way to build up the concubine's confidence for her big moment. You suspect it was both, a system that was both a spectacle and a quiet act of encouragement. You are a work of art now, a masterpiece, and you are ready to be presented. You stand in a receiving room, your heart a frantic drum against your ribs. The air is thick with the scent of perfume and expensive incense. A senior concubine, a woman of immense grace, comes to you. She does not speak. She simply holds out a small silk pouch. Inside is a delicate, embroidered handkerchief, a simple white linen square with a single, intricate gold thread running through its center. She places it in your hand, her eyes a quiet, reassuring presence. This is the moment. This is the scented handkerchief. A mainstream historical fact is that the Sultan would not choose his concubine in person. Instead, he would send a scented handkerchief to the woman he desired, a symbolic gesture that was both a great honor and a very private matter. It was a secret language spoken in silk and scent, a quiet, intimate invitation. You take the handkerchief, your fingers trembling. The silk is cool against your skin, and the scent is subtle. A light, floral perfume that smells of summer rain and distant gardens. It is not overpowering, it is a whisper. A quirky little tidbit you've heard is that each sultan had his own unique scent blend, a perfume that was made only for him and that only the concubines who had been chosen would ever get to smell. It's a bit like a secret password, isn't it? A key to a door that only a few people in the world are allowed to open. You feel a jolt of both fear and excitement. You are now a part of this secret world. The senior concubine bows her head slightly, a gesture of respect, and then leads you to the next room. There is no conversation, no ceremony, just a quiet, purposeful progression. Your journey has been a long one, from the small and dusty village you came from, to the grand, oppressive palace. To this very moment, you are a long way from the girl who arrived at the harem gates with nothing but a name and a dream. You are now a woman on the verge of a new life, a life that has been promised and prepared for. You've heard a joke that the Sultan's most powerful weapon isn't his sword, but his laundry, and you can't help but think there's a kernel of truth in that. A simple handkerchief, a simple piece of cloth, holds all the power in the world. As you walk, you think about all the lessons you've learned, the graceful walk, the quiet talk, the intricate poetry. It all comes down to this one single moment. Your entire future hinges on what happens in the next few hours. Historians still argue whether the practice of sending a scented handkerchief was a romantic gesture or a practical way for the Sultan to maintain his privacy and his godlike distance. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a way to create a sense of mystery and desire, while also maintaining a very real separation. You are not a person to be courted, you are a woman to be chosen, and you have been chosen. You are at the door now. The senior concubine gives you a final, reassuring smile and then slips away, leaving you alone. You stand there for a moment, the silk handkerchief a small, soft weight in your hand, a physical manifestation of your destiny. The door opens silently, not by a hand, but by a eunuch who appears as if from a shadow. He gives you a small, almost imperceptible bow of the head and gestures for you to enter. You take a deep breath, the scent of the handkerchief a comforting anchor in your hand, and you step across the threshold. You are in a new world. The journey to the Sultan's chambers is a sensory overload. The corridors you've walked before were beautiful, but this is a different level of opulence. The floors are a mosaic of polished marble in every shade of green and white, a flowing river of stone. The walls are not just tiled, but covered in delicate, intricate paintings of floral patterns and poetic verses. The air is warm and heavy with the scent of rosewater and a distant, musky perfume you can't quite place. You walk down a long, quiet hallway, your slippers making no sound on the smooth marble. There is no one else here. This part of the harem is a place of profound solitude, a quiet, almost sacred space. You are a pilgrim on a journey to the heart of the empire. A mainstream historical fact is that the Sultan's private apartments were meticulously designed to be a world unto themselves. A series of interlocking rooms that provided him with everything he needed without ever having to leave. They were a self-contained universe of luxury and power. As you walk, you notice a quirky little tidbit of design. The walls are not just painted, they are inlaid with tiny, mother-of-pearl birds, each one a perfect, intricate miniature. You count a dozen of them as you pass, each one seeming to flutter in the soft light from the high windows. You'll hear a joke later that the birds were a metaphor for the concubines, beautiful, silent, and trapped. You can't help but think there's a lot of truth in that. You are a beautiful, silent, and very, very trapped person. You are led into a small antechamber, a quiet waiting room. There is a single, plush velvet cushion on the floor and a small table with a single, untouched bowl of dates and nuts. The eunuch bows and leaves you alone. You sit on the cushion, your body a mix of anticipation and exhaustion. You are on the precipice of a new life, and you have no idea what it will be. You have been trained for this, but no amount of training can prepare you for the reality of it. You are a character in a story that you have no control over. Historians still argue whether the elaborate journey to the Sultan's bedchamber was designed to be a romantic and intimate experience or a way to reinforce the Sultan's power and the concubine's submission. And you suspect it was a little of both. It was a system that was designed to be both a beautiful dream and a very real display of authority. The journey itself is a kind of psychological warfare, a way to make you feel both incredibly special and utterly powerless. You are a guest in a home that you can never truly be a part of. The eunuch returns, silent as ever, and gestures to a new door, a much larger, more ornate door. This is it, the end of the journey, the beginning of your new life. The door to the Sultan's chambers opens, and you step into a world of incredible beauty and quiet intimacy. The room is large, but it is not overwhelming. It is lit by dozens of flickering oil lamps, casting a warm, golden glow on the richly carved wooden furniture and the plush, embroidered cushions that cover the floor. The air is heavy with the scent of sandalwood and something else, something clean and masculine. This is not the public, opulent space of the Imperial Hall. This is a private, personal space. A mainstream historical fact is that the Sultan's private apartments were designed for comfort and intimacy, a stark contrast to the grand, public rooms of the palace. They were his sanctuary, a place where he could be a man, not just a ruler. The Sultan is sitting on a low divan, a book in his lap. He looks up as you enter, and his eyes, those coffee-coloured eyes you saw in the corridor, are quiet and assessing. He gestures to the cushion opposite him, and you sit, your body a mix of anticipation and exhaustion. There is a long silence, and you can feel the pressure of it, a quiet weight that seems to fill the room. He does not speak, he simply watches you, a gentle, thoughtful look on his face. This is your first lesson in the Sultan's private world. His silence is not a sign of indifference, it is a sign of his power. He is a man who is used to being obeyed, and he can afford to wait. He finally speaks, his voice a low, melodic rumble. He asks you about your journey, about your home, about the things you miss. You are not a concubine to him in this moment. You are a person a girl who has been plucked from her world and placed in his. He listens to your answers with a quiet intensity, his head tilted to the side. He seems genuinely interested, and you find yourself talking to him as you would to a friend. You tell him about the small garden you had back home, the one with the unruly roses and the stubborn herbs. You tell him about your father's quiet humor and your mother's fierce pride. A quirky little tidbit you've heard is that the Sultan would often engage in these quiet, intimate conversations with his concubines, not just as a way of getting to know them, but as a way of getting to know the world outside of his palace walls. It was his way of staying connected to his people, a kind of private, one-man intelligence agency. As the night wears on, the conversation continues. It is a quiet dance of questions and answers, a slow, gentle exploration of who you are and who he is. You find yourself laughing, a soft, shy sound you haven't heard in months. He smiles, a real, genuine smile that reaches his eyes. And in that moment, he doesn't look like a ruler. He looks like a man who is genuinely happy to be with you. You'll hear a joke later that the Sultan's best quality isn't his power, but his patience. And you can see why. He is in no hurry. He is content just to be with you. Historians still argue whether the Sultan's private life with his concubines was a series of fleeting encounters or a genuine, long-term relationship. You suspect it was a little of both. For a man who had everything, a quiet, authentic connection would have been the most precious commodity of all. The morning after your night with the Sultan is a blur of quiet, purposeful movement. The eunuchs arrive before dawn, their presence a silent command. You are not to speak, not to linger. The night is over, and the day has begun. A team of older women, the harem's official ritual keepers, escorts you to a private hammam, a much smaller and more luxurious one than the communal baths you are used to. Here, you are bathed again, this time with a special blend of soaps and essential oils that are said to cleanse the body and spirit. This is a mainstream historical fact. The morning after protocol was a strict and important ritual, a way to mark a concubine's transition from a regular resident to a favored one. It was a cleansing of the past and a preparation for the future. You are not to be seen by anyone. Your passage from the Sultan's chambers to the bathhouse is a closely guarded secret, a quiet procession that happens while the rest of the harem is still asleep. You are a ghost, a secret, and in this place, a secret is a very valuable thing to be. A quirky little tidbit you've heard is that the water from your final rinse in the hammam is collected and given to the Valide Sultan's personal attendants, who test it for any signs of illness or impurity. It's a very practical, if somewhat creepy, way of ensuring the Sultan's continued health. You feel a strange mix of being both a precious commodity and a lab specimen. After your bath, you are given a new set of clothes, not the simple cotton of your daily uniform, but a dress of fine, embroidered silk. It is not as opulent as the gown you wore last night, but it is far, far more beautiful than anything you've ever owned. The color is a soft, warm apricot, a subtle sign of your new status. And you're also given a small leather pouch filled with gold coins, a gift from the Sultan, a quiet token of his pleasure. The number of coins is a matter of endless gossip and speculation among the concubines. A generous sum means the Sultan was pleased. A meager one means you may not be chosen again. You feel the weight of the pouch in your hand, a physical manifestation of your new worth. You are led back to your room, but you are not to stay there. You are now a person of importance, a gozda, and your life as a common concubine is over. Your belongings are already packed, and a young maid, a girl who looks just as lost as you once were, is waiting to carry your few possessions to your new quarters. You look at her, a silent, knowing glance, and you can see the hope in her eyes. She knows what happened. She knows you are one of the chosen ones. Historians still argue whether the morning after protocol was designed to be a reward for the concubine or a way to ensure that she would be subservient and grateful. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a beautiful, overwhelming experience, a show of power and generosity that was designed to cement your loyalty. You are not a person who has been paid for her services. You are a person who has been blessed with a new life, and as you walk, you feel the weight of that blessing and the immense, unspoken expectation that comes with it. Your life as a carrier, a simple concubine, is over. Your name, your clothes, Your very identity have been shed and replaced with a new one. You are now a guzda, a favored one. The change is not just social, it is physical. You are moved from the communal dormitories to a small but private room. One with its own window that looks out onto a quiet, sun-drenched courtyard. The room is not opulent, but it is clean. And for the first time since you arrived, you have a space that is truly your own. It is a quiet luxury, a new sense of freedom that comes with your newfound status. A mainstream historical fact is that the concubines who had spent a night with the Sultan were given new quarters, new clothes, and a monthly stipend that was far beyond anything they had ever imagined. It was a tangible sign that they were no longer just a commodity, they were now a person of value. The other girls, the ones who were your rivals just a day ago, now look at you with a mix of awe and envy. They speak to you with a new difference, their voices softer, their movements more respectful. You are no longer one of them, and you can feel the distance between you. A silent chasm that has opened up in the space of a single night. You are a ghost, a secret, and now you are a legend. You'll hear a joke later that the harem's biggest mystery isn't a secret passage, but a concubine who manages to keep her friends after a night with the Sultan. You also notice a quirky little tidbit of harem life. You are now allowed to wear a specific type of bracelet, a thin, silver band with a single, small pearl on it. It is not an expensive piece of jewelry, but it is a silent signal to everyone in the harem that you have been chosen. It's a bit like a badge of honor, isn't it? A quiet, almost invisible way of saying, I was there. You find yourself touching it throughout the day, a small, reassuring reminder of your new status. Your chores are different now. You are no longer scrubbing floors or fetching water. You are now a part of the Sultan's personal retinue. You might be asked to play music for him, to read to him, or to simply sit with him in quiet conversation. Your life is no longer about work, it is about waiting. Waiting for his summons, waiting for his pleasure, waiting for the next step in your new, unpredictable life. Historians still argue whether the sudden change in a concubine's status was a way to reward her for her service or a way to create an emotional and psychological bond with the Sultan. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a beautiful, overwhelming experience, a show of power and generosity that was designed to make you feel as though you were the luckiest woman in the world. You are not a person who has been paid for her services. You are a person who has been blessed with a new life. And as you walk, you feel the weight of that blessing and the immense, unspoken expectation that comes with it. Your new status as a Guzda brings a host of new privileges, each one a tangible reminder that your life has been fundamentally transformed. The first and most significant change is the acquisition of your own personal servant. A young girl, barely a teenager, is assigned to you. She is a carrier, a novice. Just like you were a few weeks ago, she is quiet and respectful, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and fear. You find yourself treating her with a kindness that you were not shown, a quiet rebellion against the harshness you experienced. You are not her mistress. Not yet. You are her role model, her potential future. This is a mainstream historical fact. A concubine's status was not just measured by her relationship with the Sultan, but by the number and rank of the servants under her command. Your living quarters are also a significant upgrade. You are moved to a larger, more comfortable room, a small suite of your own. It has a high, arched window that looks out onto a private courtyard, a place of quiet contemplation with a small fountain and a single, gnarled olive tree. The air here is cooler and fresher, and the silence is a profound luxury. You have your own bed, a small table, and a plush carpet on the floor. It is a world away from the crowded, noisy communal dormitories. You are no longer just a face in a crowd. You are a person with a space of your own. A quirky little tidbit you've heard is that some of the most favored concubines, the ones who have lived in the harem for a long time, have their own private hammam, a small, intimate bathhouse that is attached to their suite. They are allowed to use a special, highly scented soap made from a secret recipe that is passed down from one favored concubine to another. It's a bit like a secret club, isn't it? A small, subtle sign of a truly elite status. You find yourself hoping that one day you might be a part of that club. You are also given a new wardrobe, a collection of beautiful dresses in a variety of colors and fabrics. They are not the simple cotton of your old life, but beautiful, flowing silks and brocades. You are now free to wear what you wish, and the choice feels like an enormous responsibility. You are no longer just a body to be clothed, you are a woman to be adorned. You find yourself choosing your clothes with a newfound sense of purpose, using them to express your mood and your status. You'll hear a joke later that a harem concubine's most important decision isn't who to trust, but what to wear. And you can see why. Your clothes are a language, a statement, a silent scream in a world of whispers. Historians still argue whether the granting of these privileges was a genuine reward for the concubine's service, or a way to create a class system within the harem. A system that would keep the women divided and prevent them from forming powerful alliances. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a beautiful, overwhelming experience, a show of power and generosity that was designed to make you feel as though you were a queen in a kingdom of women. Your life as a gozda, or the favored one, is a quiet, gilded paradox. You have a new sense of freedom, but it comes with a new kind of confinement. You are no longer scrubbing floors, but you are also not a person who can simply walk away. You are a valuable asset now, a quiet investment for the Sultan and for the harem. A mainstream historical fact is that the Sultan would often elevate a favored concubine to a position of immense power. But this power was always contingent on his favor. The moment he tired of her, she could be cast aside, her privileges revoked, her life changed in an instant. It's a bit like a game of musical chairs, isn't it? The music is beautiful, but you know that at any moment, it could stop. You find that your new status brings a new set of dangers. You are now a target for jealousy, a lightning rod for the frustrations of the other women. The whispers are no longer just gossip, they are threats. You feel the cold glances of the concubines who have been here for years, the ones who have worked and waited and have never been chosen. You are a constant reminder of their failure, and their envy is a palpable presence in the air. A quirky little tidbit you notice is that the older, less favoured concubines will sometimes leave a single, withered flower on your doorstep, a silent and passive-aggressive reminder of the fleeting nature of beauty and favour. It's a cruel, poetic gesture, a quiet protest against your good fortune. You are also a target for the more powerful factions within the harem. The Valide Sultan and her inner circle are always watching, assessing your every move, trying to determine if you are a threat or a potential ally. Your every word, your every gesture, is now scrutinized. You are no longer just a person, you are a political symbol. You'll hear a joke later that a favorite concubine's most important duty isn't to the Sultan, but to her own survival. Your life is one of constant, quiet vigilance. You must be careful who you trust, who you speak to, and what you say. The girls who were your friends before are now a source of anxiety. Are they loyal? Or are they just looking for a way to get closer to the Sultan? The harem is a place where every relationship is a transaction, and you are learning, slowly and painfully, that even the most genuine friendships can be a form of manipulation. You feel a deep, quiet sense of loneliness, a sense of being on an island, beautiful and isolated. Historians still argue whether the extreme paranoia and rivalry among the concubines was a natural consequence of their living conditions or a deliberate tool of social control used by the Valide Sultan to keep them from forming a united front. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a beautiful, overwhelming experience, a show of power and generosity that was designed to make you feel as though you were the luckiest woman in the world, while simultaneously reminding you that you were always on your own. Your new status as a favoured one, a gozda, means you are now a magnet for palace intrigue. You're no longer just a passive observer. You are a player in the intricate, high-stakes game of harem politics. The gossipy whispers you once overheard are now directly about you, and you must learn to navigate this new reality with a quiet grace. A mainstream historical fact is that the harem was a political ecosystem unto itself, a place where rivalries and alliances were often a matter of life and death. The women were not just competing for the Sultan's affection, they were competing for influence, power, and a secure future for themselves and, if they were lucky enough, their children. You find that people are now seeking you out, not for your company, but for your proximity to power. A beautiful, high-ranking concubine you've never spoken to before suddenly begins to befriend you. Her words filled with praise and thinly veiled questions about the Sultan's mood. You are being pumped for information, as you would say, and you must learn to deflect these questions with a polite smile and a non-committal answer. You'll hear a joke later that the harem's most dangerous weapon isn't a sword, but a question, and you can see why. A single word, a single piece of information, could be used against you. You also become a target of jealousy from the other women. You find a small, beautifully carved doll lying on your bed one morning. It is a quirky little tidbit of harem life, a gift from a rival, meant to be a symbol of good luck but with a single, perfectly placed pin stuck through its heart. A silent curse. It's a quiet, psychological war, a series of passive-aggressive gestures that are meant to unnerve you and make you feel as though you are not safe. You learn that the harem's most important library isn't filled with books, but with whispers and unspoken threats. You find yourself building a fortress around your heart, a wall of quiet pleasantness that no one can penetrate. You are polite to everyone, but you are truly close to no one. Your only real friend is your quiet, unspoken alliance with Zeynep, your fellow concubine. And even that friendship is now a matter of quiet vigilance. Is she truly your friend? Or is she just waiting for a chance to climb over you to get to the top? It's a sad, cynical thought. But you know that in this place, it's a necessary one. Historians still argue whether the extreme level of intrigue in the harem was a natural consequence of the women's living conditions or a deliberate tool of social control used by the Valida Sultan to keep them from forming a united front. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a beautiful, overwhelming experience, a show of power and generosity that was designed to make you feel as though you were the luckiest woman in the world, while simultaneously reminding you that you were always on your own. You are now a part of the game, and you must learn to play it well if you want to survive. Your newfound status is confirmed in a way that words never could. A eunuch appears at your door, not with a summons, but with a small, lacquered box. He hands it to you with a deep bow, his face as impassive as ever. You open the box, and a gasp catches in your throat. Inside, resting on a bed of crimson silk, is a necklace of stunning beauty. It is a single, perfect string of emeralds, each stone a deep, rich green, set in an intricate filigree of gold. This is a mainstream historical fact. A sultan would often bestow gifts of jewelry on a favored concubine as a sign of his pleasure and a way of publicly acknowledging her elevated status. These gifts were not just beautiful, they were a form of currency, a physical manifestation of a woman's power. You hold the necklace in your hands. It is surprisingly heavy, the weight a tangible reminder of your new reality. The gold is cool against your skin, and the emeralds seem to catch and hold the light. 1,000 tiny green fires. You are a long way from the girl who arrived here with nothing. You are now a woman who wears jewels fit for a queen. You can't help but think it's a bit like a badge of honor, isn't it? A sparkling, beautiful sign that says, "I have been chosen." A quirky little tidbit you've heard is that the Sultan would often have his most valuable gifts, the most beautiful necklaces, the most intricate brooches, engraved with a secret symbol, a small, hidden message that only he and the recipient would ever know. It's a way of making a public gift a private, intimate secret. It's a bit like a wink from a man who is the ruler of a world of thousands, a small, quiet gesture that makes you feel as though you are the only person in his world. You find yourself turning the necklace over and over in your hands, searching for a hidden message. You'll hear a joke later that the harem's most valuable treasure isn't the sultan's treasury, but the secrets hidden in the jewelry. The other concubines see the necklace. Of course, they don't speak, but their eyes are a clear language of both envy and respect. Your rival, the one who left the withered flower on your doorstep, gives you a long, appraising look, a silent acknowledgement of your victory. Your ally, Zeynep, gives you a small, genuine smile, a quiet sign of her joy for you. The necklace is not just a piece of jewelry, it is a statement. It is a symbol of your power, your favor, and your potential. Historians still argue whether the Sultan's gifts of jewelry were a romantic gesture or a form of social control, a way to keep the women in a state of perpetual debt and gratitude. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a beautiful, overwhelming experience, a show of power and generosity that was designed to make you feel as though you were the luckiest woman in the world, while also reminding you that you were always, always, in his debt. You wear the necklace with a newfound sense of purpose, a quiet sense of power. You are no longer just a concubine, you are a favorite. And you have the jewels to prove it. Your new status gives you a vantage point, a chance to see parts of the harem you never knew existed. You are now allowed to spend time in a special, private courtyard, one that opens to a magnificent view of the Bosphorus Strait. From here, you can see the distant, bustling city of Istanbul. Its minarets and domes a hazy, beautiful line on the horizon. A mainstream historical fact is that the Topkapi Palace was built on a promontory overlooking the Golden Horn, the Bosphorus, and the Sea of Marmara, giving the Sultan and his court a strategic and beautiful view of his capital. As you stand here, you feel a connection to the world outside, a quiet, almost imperceptible thread that links you to the city below. You can hear the distant murmur of the Grand Bazaar, the rhythmic shouts of the vendors, the clamour of 1,000 people going about their daily lives. You've heard whispers about the bazaar, about the incredible goods that are bought and sold there. A quirky little tidbit you've heard is that some of the most beautiful fabrics and spices used in the harem were purchased by the black eunuchs at the bazaar, but that they had their own secret tunnels and a special section of the market that was only for them. It's a bit like a VIP lounge for palace staff, a special, secret world that no one on the outside ever sees. You also hear about the people. You hear about the merchants from all over the world who come to Istanbul to trade their wares, about the storytellers who entertain the crowds with tales of adventure and romance, about the poets who sit in the coffee houses and write beautiful verses. It's a world that feels both impossibly far away and tantalizingly close. You'll hear a joke later that the best way to get a new dress is to stand at the window and wish for it, and you can see why. The outside world is a place of possibility, and the harem, for all its beauty, is a place of confinement. Your life is a paradox now. You are more valuable, more powerful, and more comfortable than you ever were before. But you are also more alone. You are a jewel in a very beautiful, very strong cage. Historians still argue whether the Sultan's design of the harem, with its magnificent views and its beautiful gardens, was a genuine attempt to provide a comfortable life for his concubines, or if it was a deliberate form of psychological control, a way to show them everything they were missing and everything they would never have. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a system that was designed to make you feel as though you were the luckiest woman in the world, while also reminding you that you were always, always, a prisoner. The Grand Bazaar is a world you can see, but you can never be a part of. And that is a different kind of pain. Your life as a Gozda is one of quiet privilege, but it is also one lived in the shadow of a very different kind of power. You have a chance, for the first time, to see the Janissary Corps, the Sultan's elite personal army, up close. They are a constant presence in the palace. Their movements are precise, rhythmic dance of disciplined power. A mainstream historical fact is that the Janissaries were not just soldiers, they were a unique social class, an elite fighting force made up of Christian boys who were taken from their families at a young age, converted to Islam, and raised to be loyal only to the Sultan. They were a military force and a cultural phenomenon, a symbol of the Sultan's absolute power. You watch them from a high window, their white felt caps and long, flowing coats a striking contrast to the vibrant colours of the palace. They walk with a quiet confidence, their movements as precise and deliberate as a dancer's. They are the eyes and ears of the Sultan outside the harem, a brutal and efficient intelligence agency that keeps the empire in line. You feel a strange mix of fear and admiration. They are a part of the same machine you are in, but they are a very different kind of cog. A quirky little tidbit you've heard is that the Janissaries were forbidden from marrying or having families, a rule that was intended to ensure their loyalty to the Sultan. You'll hear a joke later that the only thing a Janissary loves more than his Sultan is a good cup of coffee. And you find yourself wondering if that's true. You see them in the courtyards, their movements a quiet procession. You hear their distant, rhythmic drums during a drill. Their presence is a constant reminder that the beautiful, serene world of the harem is a small bubble in a much larger, more dangerous world. The Sultan's power is not just in his beautiful palace and his thousands of women, it is in his army, his ability to command and to enforce his will. Historians still argue whether the Janissary Corps was a genuine form of social mobility for Christian boys or a brutal form of oppression. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a system that offered a chance at a new life. A life of power and influence. But it was also a system that was built on a foundation of abduction and psychological manipulation. You are not so different. After all, you were taken from your home, your name was changed, and you were given a new life. You are a janissary in a beautiful dress, a quiet soldier in a war that is fought with whispers and glances instead of swords and guns. You are a part of the machine, and you are starting to understand its real power. You have always known the harem was a place of immense wealth, but your new status gives you a glimpse into its inner workings, and you realize it is not just a collection of beautiful things, but a massive, self-sustaining economic entity. A mainstream historical fact is that the harem had its own treasury, managed by the Valide Sultan, and it was a source of enormous personal and political power. She controlled not only the daily expenses of the harem itself, the food, the clothing, the salaries of the eunuchs and servants, but also had the power to fund public works, build mosques, and even sponsor military campaigns. The harem was not a drain on the empire's economy, it was a powerful, and often hidden, engine of it. You see it in the daily deliveries, wagons filled with silks from China, spices from India, and fine leather from Persia are brought to a private entrance and unloaded by a team of porters and eunuchs. The goods are inspected, catalogued, and then distributed to the various departments within the harem. The food that you eat is the best in the world, and the clothes you wear are made from the finest materials. You are a part of a quiet, relentless consumer culture that operates on a scale you can't even comprehend. A quirky little tidbit you've heard is that the harem had its own internal accounting system, a complex network of ledgers and codes that was so secret that only a handful of senior eunuchs and the Valide Sultan herself ever understood it. It's a bit like a hidden bank, isn't it? A place where the real power of the empire is stored and managed. You also realize that the harem is a source of wealth for the outside world as well. The merchants who sell their goods to the harem become rich and powerful, their lives transformed by a single, successful transaction. The eunuchs who manage the purchases often become wealthy in their own right, their personal fortunes a quiet reflection of their immense influence. You'll hear a joke later that the harem's biggest export isn't a concubine, it's money. And you can see why. The harem is a financial black hole, a place where money goes in and power comes out. Historians still argue whether the Valide Sultan's control of the harem's economy was a positive force for the empire, a way to fund public works and charitable projects, or if it was a source of corruption and political infighting. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a beautiful, overwhelming experience, a show of power and generosity that was designed to make you feel as though you were the luckiest woman in the world, while also reminding you that you were always a part of a system that was more powerful than you. The harem is not just a home, it is an economy. And you are a very valuable asset. Your new life as a favored one gives you a level of freedom you've never known. You are now allowed to wander the harem's inner sanctums, and one day, you stumble upon something you never knew existed, hidden behind a heavy, velvet curtain. You find a small, dusty room. It is a library, a place filled with books from every corner of the empire and beyond. A mainstream historical fact is that the Ottoman sultans were great patrons of the arts and sciences, and the Topkapi Palace had an extensive library that was used by the sultan and his court. It was a repository of knowledge, a physical manifestation of the empire's intellectual wealth. You run your hands over the spines of the books. The titles are in a variety of languages: Ottoman Turkish, Persian, Arabic, even a few in Greek and Latin. The subjects are just as varied. You find books on poetry, history, astronomy, and medicine. You find a book on the history of ancient Rome, its pages filled with illustrations of forgotten kings and battles. You find a book of Persian love poems, its pages filled with beautiful flowing script and intricate miniatures. A quirky little tidbit you notice is that many of the books have a small, almost invisible stamp on the inside cover. a symbol that means the book was either a gift from a foreign dignitary or was taken from a conquered land. It's a silent, almost invisible history of the empire's conquests and its relationships with the outside world. You are a girl who came from a small village, a place with no books, a place where stories were told, not read, and you are now in a room filled with the combined knowledge of 1,000 years. It is a quiet, profound luxury. You are a person who can now, in a very real way, educate herself. You find a book on herbalism, its pages filled with beautiful drawings of plants and flowers and their uses. You sit on the floor, your back against a dusty bookshelf, and you lose yourself in the pages, a quiet rebellion against the world that wants you to be just a beautiful face. Historians still argue whether the library was a genuine tool for learning or if it was simply a symbol of the Sultan's power and intellectual superiority. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a beautiful, overwhelming experience, a show of power and generosity that was designed to make you feel as though you were the luckiest woman in the world, while also giving you the tools to be a person of intelligence and knowledge. The library is a place of freedom, a place where you can escape the confines of your gilded cage and travel the world with your mind. And in a world of physical confinement, that is a precious thing to have. You'll hear a joke later that the harem's most powerful weapon isn't a sword or a question, but a book. And in this moment, you believe it, your new passion for the library, particularly the books on herbalism, gives you a new sense of purpose. You begin to spend your days not just waiting for the Sultan's summons, but studying, memorizing the names of plants, their properties, and their uses. You learn about the powerful properties of saffron, a spice that is more valuable than gold, a remedy for everything from a low mood to a high fever. You learn about the calming effects of chamomile and the invigorating properties of mint. This is a mainstream historical fact. Herbalism and traditional medicine were a major part of Ottoman life, and the harem, with its access to the finest spices and herbs from all over the world, was a center of this knowledge. You begin to put your knowledge to use. You start by making simple remedies for yourself and your servant, a soothing balm for a scraped knee, a tea for a persistent headache. The girls who were once your rivals now come to you with their ailments, a quiet acknowledgement of your newfound knowledge and power. You become a quiet source of comfort and healing in a world of constant anxiety. A quirky little tidbit you've heard is that some of the most powerful and influential women in the harem were not the ones with the most beauty or the most jewelry, but the ones with the most knowledge of herbal remedies. It was a kind of quiet, feminine power, a way of caring for the body and the soul. You'll hear a joke later that the harem's best remedy for a broken heart is a good cup of chamomile tea, and you can see why. You also learn a lot about the darker side of herbalism. You learn about the plants that can be used to induce sleep, to cause illness, or even to poison. You learn that the same plant that can be used to heal can also be used to harm, and you feel a new sense of fear and responsibility. You are not just a healer, you are a person with a quiet and dangerous power. You find yourself being very careful about who you share your knowledge with, and you begin to add a new skill to your arsenal, the art of reading a person's intentions. Historians still argue whether the knowledge of herbalism was a tool of empowerment for the women in the harem or if it was a source of constant paranoia and fear. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a beautiful, overwhelming experience, a show of power and generosity that was designed to make you feel as though you were the luckiest woman in the world, while also reminding you that you were always on your own. Your knowledge is a form of power, but it is also a source of danger. You are now a person who is not just a body, you are a person with a mind. And in a world of physical confinement, that is a precious and dangerous thing to be. Your life as a Gazda is a quiet routine of study and waiting, but that rhythm is broken by the arrival of Eid, one of the most important religious festivals of the year. The harem, a place of quiet tension, suddenly erupts in a riot of color, sound, and festivity. A mainstream historical fact is that Eid was a time of immense celebration throughout the Ottoman Empire, and the palace was no exception. It was a time for family, for feasting, and for a temporary reprieve from the strict social rules of daily life. The air in the courtyards is filled with the scent of spiced pastries and roasting lamb. The halls, usually so quiet and somber, are now filled with the sound of music, the rhythmic beat of drums, the lilting melodies of the kanon and the tanbur, and the high, joyful voices of women singing. You are given a new dress to wear, one of a vibrant, celebratory color, and you feel a sense of lightness and joy you haven't felt since you arrived. You are a part of a community now, a shared celebration of faith and tradition. You watch as the older, high-ranking concubines, the ones you usually see only from a distance, mingle with the lower-ranking servants. They are laughing, their faces a mask of joy. You see the Valide Sultan herself, a woman who is usually a symbol of cold, remote power, smiling and holding the hand of a small child. It's a surreal and beautiful sight, a temporary shattering of the social hierarchy. A quirky little tidbit you notice is that the black eunuchs, usually so stoic and silent, are now a part of the festivities. They are dancing. Their long robes a whirlwind of motion, and they are laughing, a deep, joyful sound you never knew they were capable of making. It's a beautiful and deeply human moment. You and Zeynep, your quiet ally, sit together and eat pastries, a small moment of genuine friendship in a world of complex relationships. You both know that this moment is fleeting, that the harem will return to its quiet, tense rhythm when the festival is over, but for now, you can simply be happy. You'll hear a joke later that the only thing better than an Eid feast is an Eid feast without any eunuchs. And you both laugh. A soft, shared sound that is a small rebellion in itself. Historians still argue whether the celebration of Eid in the harem was a genuine religious and social event or a deliberate tool of social control, a way to release tension and prevent rebellion. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a beautiful, overwhelming experience, a show of power and generosity that was designed to make you feel as though you were a part of a family, while also reminding you that you were a part of a very large and very controlled institution. You are a person who is celebrating her faith, but you are also a person who is celebrating her confinement, your new status as a favored concubine. A guzda allows you to wander into parts of the harem you never knew existed. One day, you find yourself on a high, enclosed terrace, a place where a gentle breeze blows from the sea. You are alone, and you feel an incredible sense of solitude. The terrace has a high, arched window, and when you look out, you feel your breath catch in your throat. You can see the city of Istanbul spread out before you, a magnificent panorama of minarets, domes, and rooftops that seems to stretch to the horizon. A mainstream historical fact is that the Topkapi Palace was built on a promontory overlooking the Golden Horn, the Bosphorus, and the Sea of Marmara, giving the Sultan and his court a strategic and beautiful view of his capital. You press your face against the cool stone of the window frame, and you feel an incredible sense of both awe and pain. This is a world you can see, but you can never be a part of. You can see the ships with their sails full of wind, leaving the harbour for distant lands. You can see the merchants in the bazaar, haggling over prices with a boisterous energy. You can see the people living their lives, walking freely through the streets. You are a jewel in a very beautiful, very strong cage. And the window is the one thing that reminds you of your confinement. A quirky little tidbit you've heard is that the Valide Sultan had a secret, private telescope on this terrace, a hidden way for her to watch the world she ruled without ever having to leave her palace. It's a bit like a hidden camera, a quiet way for the most powerful woman in the empire to spy on her subjects. It's a very practical, if somewhat creepy, way of staying connected to a world that you are both a part of and a prisoner in. You'll hear a joke later that the harem's best remedy for a broken heart is a good view, and you can see why. The view is a beautiful distraction from the reality of your confinement, a small moment of freedom that you can feel but not touch. You feel a sense of melancholy wash over you, a quiet sadness that is a part of your new life. You have a beautiful room, beautiful clothes, and the favour of the Sultan. But you are also a person who can never truly be free. Historians still argue whether the Sultan's design of the harem, with its magnificent views and its beautiful gardens, was a genuine attempt to provide a comfortable life for his concubines, or if it was a deliberate form of psychological control, a way to show them everything they were missing and everything they would never have. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a system that was designed to make you feel as though you were the luckiest woman in the world, while also reminding you that you were always a prisoner. The outside world is a world you can see, but you can never be a part of, and that is a different kind of pain. In the harem, a woman's true power is not in her beauty or her wit, but in her ability to bear a child for the sultan. You've heard whispers about the immense status and influence that comes with it, but you witness it firsthand in the birth of a child to a concubine who was once a simple odalisque. Her name is Layla, and her story is a cautionary tale of both fortune and quiet despair. A mainstream historical fact is that a concubine who bore a child for the sultan, particularly a son, was given the title of Haseki Sultan, and her power became second only to the Valida Sultan. This was the ultimate prize, the culmination of a lifetime of work and sacrifice. You see Layla from a distance, her body swollen with the weight of her pregnancy. She is now treated with a level of deference that is both humbling and a little frightening. The eunuchs bow to her, the other concubines defer to her, and the Valida Sultan herself sends her special foods and gifts. She is a queen in all but name, a living symbol of the sultan's power and his dynasty's future. A quirky little tidbit you've heard is that the Valida Sultan would often have a special cradle made of gold and inlaid with jewels, prepared for a concubine who was expected to give birth. It was a beautiful and deeply practical way of ensuring the child's royal status from the moment of its birth. When Layla gives birth to a son, the harem erupts in a riot of celebration. The air is filled with the sound of music, laughter, and the cries of the newborn baby. Layla is no longer just a woman, she is a mother to a future sultan, and her future is now inextricably linked to his. You see the quiet sadness in her eyes. However, she has won the game, but she has also lost her freedom. Her every move, her every word, her every thought is now under the scrutiny of 1,000 eyes. Her life is no longer her own, it is a part of the dynasty. You'll hear a joke later that the only thing more powerful than a sultan is a sultan's mother, and you can see why. A single woman can now influence the entire empire, and she can do it from the quiet, beautiful confines of the harem. Historians still argue whether the practice of elevating a concubine who bore a son was a way to ensure the continuity of the dynasty or a way to prevent the concubines from forming alliances with the outside world. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a beautiful, overwhelming experience, a show of power and generosity that was designed to make you feel as though you were the luckiest woman in the world, while also reminding you that you were always a part of a system that was more powerful than you. The birth of a child is a beautiful, joyous event, but in the harem, it is also a quiet, terrifying moment of confinement. Your life as a favored concubine, a gözde, is a quiet routine of study, art, and waiting. You have a beautiful room, beautiful clothes, and the respect of the other women. But as you watch Layla, the newly minted Haseki Sultan, you realize something profound and terrifying. Your gilded life is a cage, and even at the very top, you are still a prisoner. The harem, for all its opulence, is a world of absolute confinement. A mainstream historical fact is that a concubine, once she entered the harem, would never leave. Her only path to freedom was through the sultan's death, at which point she would be sent to the old palace, a kind of gilded retirement home for the widowed and the discarded. You have everything a woman in the empire could ever dream of, but you have no freedom. You cannot walk in the streets of Istanbul. You cannot visit your family. You cannot choose your own future. Your life is a beautiful, carefully curated performance, a show put on for the benefit of one man. You are a person of immense value, but you are also a possession, a piece of art to be admired but never touched by the outside world. A quirky little tidbit you've heard is that some of the older concubines would keep a small bird in a cage in their rooms, a quiet, almost invisible symbol of their own confinement. It's a bittersweet gesture, a way of acknowledging the beautiful and deeply sad nature of their lives. You also realize that even the Sultan is a prisoner. His world is one of immense power, but it is also one of profound isolation. He cannot walk freely in the streets. He cannot have a real, unguarded conversation with anyone outside of his immediate and highly vetted inner circle. He is a man who is the ruler of a world of millions, but he is also a prisoner in his own palace. You'll hear a joke later that the harem's most guarded secret isn't a concubine, but the Sultan himself. And you can see why. He is a god in his own universe, but he is also a person who is entirely and utterly alone. Historians still argue whether the extreme seclusion of the Ottoman sultans and their harem was a result of their immense power or a sign of their paranoia and fear of being overthrown. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a system that was designed to protect the ruler, but it was also a system that was designed to keep him in a state of quiet. Beautiful confinement. Your life is a paradox now. You are more valuable, more powerful, and more comfortable than you ever were before, but you are also more alone. You are a jewel in a very beautiful, very strong cage, and you are starting to realize that the cage is not just around your body, but around your mind and your soul. Your life as a Gazda, a favored one, is now one of quiet routine, but every so often, you are reminded of the bizarre and fascinating aspects of the Sultan's world. You are asked to accompany a eunuch on a delivery to the Sultan's private gardens, and you are shocked by what you see. The gardens are not just a place of flowers and fountains. They are a menagerie, a small, private zoo filled with exotic animals from all over the world. A mainstream historical fact is that the Ottoman sultans were collectors of rare and exotic animals, and their palaces were often home to a variety of creatures, from cheetahs to parrots. These animals were not just for amusement, they were a symbol of the Sultan's power and his dominion over the entire world. You walk down a secluded path, and you see them, a pair of gazelles, their eyes wide and liquid, their movements as graceful as a dancer's. You see a cage filled with brightly coloured parrots. Their feathers a riot of green, blue, and red. They squawk at you. Their voices a jarringly modern sound in this ancient world. A quirky little tidbit you've heard is that the Sultan had a personal trainer who would teach the parrots to say a specific phrase, a secret message that he could then use to send to his ministers. It's a bit like a living secret message service, a quiet, almost invisible way of communicating without a single word being written down. You also see a majestic cheetah, a beautiful wild animal that paces in a gilded cage. Its eyes are a cold, assessing yellow, and it looks at you with a quiet, bored intensity. You feel a jolt of both fear and pity. The cheetah is beautiful, but it is also a prisoner, a wild thing that has been tamed and confined for the pleasure of a man. You can't help but feel a sense of kinship with it. You are not so different. After all, you are a wild thing that has been taken from her home and confined for the pleasure of a man. You'll hear a joke later that the cheetah is the only one in the harem who truly understands the Sultan, and you think to yourself that there is a lot of truth in that. They are both beautiful, wild, and utterly alone. Historians still argue whether the Sultan's menagerie was a genuine expression of his love for animals, or a deliberate display of his power and his ability to command nature itself. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a beautiful, overwhelming experience, a show of power and generosity that was designed to make you feel as though you were the luckiest woman in the world, while also reminding you that you were always, always, a prisoner. The animals are a part of a beautiful and deeply sad system. You are a person who is living in a cage, and you are starting to realize that the cage is not just around your body, but around your mind and your soul. Your life as a Gazda, a favored one, is a quiet routine of study, art, and waiting, but every so often the outside world finds a way to intrude. One day, a high-ranking eunuch, a man of immense power, brings a visitor to the harem. The man is a merchant, a man of wealth and influence from the city of Istanbul, and he has been granted the rare and incredible privilege of entering the harem to display his goods. A mainstream historical fact is that merchants and tradesmen were sometimes allowed into the harem, but they were almost always blindfolded or heavily guarded, and their interactions with the women were strictly controlled. It was a way for the harem to get access to the latest fashions and goods from the outside world without compromising its security. You watch from a high balcony, a silent observer of a scene that feels like it belongs to a different world. The merchant is a small, fidgety man with a neatly trimmed beard and a nervous, assessing look in his eyes. He is not allowed to speak directly to the concubines. Instead, he speaks to a eunuch, who then translates his words to the women. The eunuch is a barrier, a filter that separates the two worlds. The merchant's goods are laid out on a large, intricately woven carpet, rolls of shimmering silk from China, bolts of rich velvet from Persia, and delicate lace from Europe. The colours are a riot of gold, crimson, and deep, dark blue, a stark contrast to the muted colours of the harem's daily life. A quirky little tidbit you've heard is that some of the most beautiful fabrics were made with a secret thread, a single, almost invisible gold or silver strand that was woven into the fabric. The merchant would sometimes point it out to the eunuch, who would then quietly tell the concubines, a small, subtle way of showing off his goods. It's a bit like a hidden watermark, a secret signature that only a few people would ever know about. You'll hear a joke later that the merchant is the only man in Istanbul who would willingly come to the harem, and you can see why. It is a terrifying and deeply profitable experience. You watch as the Valide Sultan, the most powerful woman in the empire, steps forward to inspect the fabrics. She does not touch them, she simply looks. Her eyes are silent, assessing presence. The merchant, who is not allowed to look at her, stands with his head bowed, a nervous, expectant look on his face. The moment is a perfect illustration of the power dynamics of the harem. The merchant has everything to lose, and the Valide Sultan has everything to gain. She is a woman who is both a prisoner and a queen, and her power is absolute. Historians still argue whether the presence of outside merchants in the harem was a genuine form of trade or a psychological tool used by the Sultan to remind the women of their isolation. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a beautiful, overwhelming experience, a show of power and generosity that was designed to make you feel as though you were the luckiest woman in the world, while also reminding you that you were always, a prisoner. The outside world is a world you can see, but you can never be a part of, and that is a different kind of pain. As a Gozda, you've learned about the countless layers of protocol and security that define harem life, but nothing is as chilling as the hushed whispers you hear about the cafes, or the cage. It's a term spoken in hushed tones, a secret that is not supposed to be known. A mainstream historical fact is that in the Ottoman Empire, the practice of primogeniture was often replaced by a system of fratricide, where the new sultan would kill all his male siblings to prevent a coup. To mitigate this practice, the Ottoman family began secluding all royal princes, save for the heir, in a luxurious but isolated part of the palace. This was the cafes, a golden prison. You hear about it from an older, more cynical concubine, a woman who has been in the harem for so long that her face is a mask of weary wisdom. She tells you about the princes who live there, their lives a quiet, desolate routine of study, art, and waiting for a throne that they may never inherit. Their only companions are a few mute eunuchs and the quiet sounds of their own thoughts. They are not allowed to marry or have children. Their lives a living testament to the Sultan's power and his paranoia. A quirky little tidbit you've heard is that the princes in the cafes were sometimes given a hobby, a very specific craft to master, such as clockmaking or miniature painting, to occupy their minds and to prevent them from going mad. It's a bit like giving a prisoner a puzzle to solve, isn't it? A way to keep their minds engaged while their bodies are trapped. You feel a deep sense of sadness for them. They are the harem's male counterparts, a gilded, beautiful, and utterly heartbreaking example of the cost of power. They are living a life that is in some ways more confined than your own. You, at least, have a chance to be with the Sultan, to have a child, to have a life of purpose. They have nothing but a future that is entirely out of their hands. You'll hear a joke later that the best way to get a secret out of a prince is to promise him a good meal. And you find yourself thinking that in a world of such profound isolation, a good meal might be the only thing they have to look forward to. Historians still argue whether the cafes was a more humane solution to the problem of succession, or if it was a brutal, psychological prison that often drove the princes to madness. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a beautiful, overwhelming experience, a show of power and generosity that was designed to make you feel as though you were the luckiest woman in the world, while also reminding you that you were always a prisoner. The princes in the cafes are a living symbol of your own confinement. You are a person who is living in a cage, and you are starting to realize that the cage is not just around your body, but around your mind and your soul. As you walk through the silent, sun-drenched courtyards of the harem, you begin to contemplate its enduring legacy. It's a place that is at once a paradise and a prison, a symbol of immense power and profound confinement. You are now a part of that legacy, a woman whose life will be a small, quiet footnote in the grand, sweeping history of the Ottoman Empire. A mainstream historical fact is that the harem of the Topkapi Palace was not just a place of royal concubines, it was a complex social and political institution that existed for over 400 years, a testament to its enduring power and its ability to adapt and survive. It was a world unto itself, a kingdom of women that was both a source of immense pleasure and a source of incredible political power. You think about the thousands of women who have walked these same halls, who have felt the same sense of awe and fear, who have dreamed the same dreams of power and freedom. You think about the concubines who became mothers to sultans, the ones who ruled empires from behind a veil of secrecy. You think about the ones who were discarded, their stories lost to history, their lives a quiet, unrecorded tragedy. You are a part of a long and often heartbreaking lineage. A quirky little tidbit you've heard is that some of the most beautiful and intricate carpets in the palace were woven by the concubines. Each one a quiet, almost invisible history of their lives, a single thread of a different color, a small, intricate knot, a secret symbol that only the women who wove it would ever know about. It's a bit like a hidden code, a quiet rebellion against the world that wants them to be just a beautiful face. You'll hear a joke later that the harem's most important library isn't filled with books, but with carpets, and you can see why. The carpets are a testament to the women's quiet strength and their ability to create beauty in the midst of confinement. You also realize that the harem's legacy is a complicated one. It is a place that is at once a symbol of the sultan's oppression and a symbol of the women's quiet resilience. It is a place that is both a source of immense suffering and a source of incredible art and beauty. It is a paradox, a place that defies simple labels. Historians still argue whether the harem was a genuine form of social mobility for women or a system of institutionalized slavery. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a beautiful, overwhelming experience, a show of power and generosity that was designed to make you feel as though you were the luckiest woman in the world, while also reminding you that you were always, always a prisoner. The harem's legacy is a quiet one. It is a story of survival, of power, and of quiet confinement. And you are a part of that story. Your life as a guzda, a favored one, is a quiet routine of study, art, and waiting. But as the years pass, you sense a subtle shift in the palace, a quiet undercurrent of change that feels both inevitable and unsettling. The harem is still a place of immense power, but you sense that its grip on the empire is slowly beginning to loosen. A mainstream historical fact is that the Ottoman Empire, after centuries of being a dominant world power, began a long, slow period of decline in the 17th century. This decline was not sudden or dramatic, it was a quiet, almost imperceptible erosion of power that was felt in every part of the empire, even within the walls of the harem. You hear the whispers from the eunuchs. They speak of distant wars that are not going well, of rebellious provinces that are no longer paying their taxes, of foreign powers that are becoming more and more bold. The Sultan, who was once a god to his people, is now a man who is increasingly concerned with the problems of his empire. His visits to the harem are less frequent, his attention more fleeting. He is a man who is being pulled in 100 different directions, and you are just one of them. A quirky little tidbit you've heard is that the Valide Sultan, the most powerful woman in the empire, is now spending less time on her charitable projects and more time on her political alliances. A quiet sign that she, too, is feeling the pressure of a changing world. It's a bit like a ship that is slowly, imperceptibly, taking on water. You and Zeynep, your quiet ally, sit together in the courtyard. You are both older now, no longer the young, naive girls who arrived here. You are women who have seen the harem from the inside, who have experienced its immense joys and its quiet sorrows. You both know that the life you have is a precious and beautiful one, but you also know that it is a part of a system that is slowly, inexorably, beginning to die. You'll hear a joke later that the harem's greatest challenge isn't a rival concubine, but a rival empire. And you can see why. The outside world is no longer just a distant, tantalizing view from a window. It is a very real and very dangerous presence. Historians still argue whether the decline of the harem's power was a result of the Ottoman Empire's overall decline, or if it was a sign of a new, more modern social order that was slowly beginning to emerge. You suspect it was a little of both. It was a beautiful, though overwhelming experience, a show of power and generosity that was designed to make you feel as though you were the luckiest woman in the world, while also reminding you that you were always a part of a system that was more powerful than you. The harem is a living symbol of an empire that is slowly and quietly beginning to fade, and you are a part of that slow, quiet farewell. The years have passed now, and you are an old woman. Your hair, once a vibrant black, is now a soft, ethereal white. Your hands, once so nimble at calligraphy and music, are now gnarled and frail. You sit in your small, quiet room, the window looking out onto the private courtyard with the gnarled olive tree. You are no longer a guzda, a favoured one. The sultan you served has long since passed, and a new one, a young, vigorous man, now sits on the throne. You are a shaygird, an elder, a quiet presence in a world that is no longer your own. The young concubines, the ones who are just beginning their journey, look at you with a mixture of respect and pity. You are a living ghost, a quiet reminder of a time that is now, for them, just a story. A mainstream historical fact is that the concubines who were not chosen to be the mother of a sultan, or who were not married off to a high-ranking official, would spend their lives in the harem, a kind of gilded retirement home, a testament to their quiet, and often lonely, survival. You think about your life, a story of survival, ambition, and quiet confinement. You were a girl from a small village, and you became a person of immense value, a woman who had the ear of a sultan and the respect of a palace. You lived a life that was filled with both immense beauty and profound sadness. You saw the harem from the inside, its brilliant lights and its dark shadows. You knew its secrets, its alliances, and its betrayals. You are a survivor, a quiet witness to a world that is now just a memory. A quirky little tidbit you've heard is that some of the older concubines would use a special, highly concentrated jasmine perfume, a scent that was so strong that it was said to bring back memories of the past. You find yourself dabbing a little on your wrists, and the scent fills your small room. A quiet, nostalgic whisper that takes you back to a world of scented handkerchiefs and moonlit courtyards. It's a bittersweet scent, a mix of beauty and loss. You'll hear a joke later that the only thing an old concubine loves more than a good cup of coffee is a good story. And you find yourself thinking that your life is the best story of all. As the sun begins to set, you feel a sense of peace. Your life has not been one of a fairy tale, but it has been one of quiet purpose. You were a person who was a part of something much, much bigger than herself. You were a person who learned to be strong, to be resilient, and to be beautiful in a world that wanted her to be a simple, empty vessel. You are a survivor, a quiet, beautiful testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. And as the last rays of light fade from the window, you feel a deep, quiet sense of contentment. The harem is not just a place of confinement, it is a place of survival. It is a place of quiet, beautiful grace. And it is a place that you, a simple girl from a small village, were a part of. The world outside is a distant, murmuring sound now, a soft hum that feels like a quiet lullaby. The lights of the city are beginning to twinkle, and the stars are starting to appear in the velvet black of the night sky. The day is over, and your story is complete. You are a person who has lived a long and complicated life, and you are now, finally, at peace. You are no longer a part of a system. You are a part of a memory. You are a part of a legacy. You are a person who has lived in the quiet, beautiful, and deeply sad world of the harem, and you are now, finally, at rest. The sounds of the palace are softer now, the distant clatter of a plate, the soft hush of a passing servant. Your breathing is slow and even. The story is fading, the colors softening, the details blurring into a gentle mist. The cool evening air is coming through the window, carrying the scent of jasmine and the quiet, distant sound of the Bosphorus. You are tired, your eyelids feel heavy. There is nothing left to do now but to close your eyes and to let the soft hum of the world carry you away. You're home. You've survived. Now, you can finally sleep. End of script. Sweet dreams.